I'd be like, sorry, buddy, you're gone. It wouldn't even be hesitation, because if he has no issue with that, I'm afraid they would maybe leak into other areas of his choices that he makes, and you just can't trust it. You just can't trust it, and there's just too much. There's a lot of money at stake, and there's a lot of stuff going on in professional sports. Think of the contracts in football and what it can mean for a poor or bad decision.
Big time, man. Well, that's it. I mean, these are clearly red flags, and it hasn't done anything illegal, with any of this activity. But you're right. I mean, Lloyd is now going to be at the table trying to broker a new CBA. I don't know. Is he at Magic City until 6 a.m. and then he's got a meeting with Goodell at 9? How's that going to go? I guess you'd be a little bit concerned about that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's crazy that he would put himself in that position, and now the union, now all hell's going to break loose with what's going on with the PA. And this seems to happen a lot in the NFL, because you mentioned the contracts, like the fact that they're not guaranteed, and I don't think the owners will ever allow them to be guaranteed. Like, it's just never going to get there. It's, unlike any other sport, it's so physical, it's so vicious, the lifespan is so short. The average player is probably 3 years in the league, give or take. And yes, we focus on the guys who make a lot of money, like TJ Watt yesterday made a fortune, right? He's making like $41 million guaranteed a year or whatever it is. Highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Worthy of that, deserving of that. But the 53rd guy on the roster in Pittsburgh who's, running down the field for punt returns, that guy's not, he's making $800,000, and he's probably going to be working somewhere else in a year or two. So yeah, the union, it's a wild scene. It's a wild scene, and this reporting is it's just going to get going. It's courtesy of ESPN and Don Von Natta and another reporter. But you knew we were starting to show this one. They're digging now, big time. Now that
they have a smell a little bit of blood, they're going to go find stories, and there'll be other. Like I said, this isn't the only one. There'll be other things, and they're going to unravel this thing. And I think that initially the whole thing at the Coldplay show was probably more dramatic, but this, I think, as it unfolds, will probably take the lead from our friends at the Coldplay concert.
I think you're right. I mean, I think, again, Lloyd Howell Jr. has now resigned, and now, I don't think he's going to get a third strike, Jonas, if you're indicating that he was up to something in his previous stop. I don't think the next union's going to look over this one and say, we'll give you another shot. We'll have bygones be bygones. Lloyd Howell Jr. But the Coldplay one was a completely different story, and more on that coming out by the hour. Like, everyone's investigating their backgrounds and who knew those two growing up, and I've been reading threads on that all day. And yeah, this one I find much more interesting. Like, those two people I don't know, I have no association with them. I don't care. Like, now it's over. It was an interesting story for a day or two. This is one that's much deeper, because it involves the NFL and the Players Association, and you got to think anyone in this position in maybe any of the other leagues, again, are probably thinking, all right, where have I been? Because, like, we've all been out, you go out with people that are in management or whatever, and they've got the company card. Buying dinners and stuff can get pretty expensive, can get pretty crazy. But if it's a business meeting, okay, that's the way it goes. And I would guess Lloyd Howell, I keep saying his name, I love his name, Lloyd Howell Jr. is that's another thing that they'll be reviewing. Like, what was he doing at the steakhouse where it was a $12,000 dinner? Was that necessary for two people? What else was going on with this guy? It's not going to stop. But anyway, we'll continue to track what else comes out on that throughout the afternoon. Again, I just referenced TJ Watt getting paid yesterday. That was big because, I've been doing discussions about Aaron Rodgers and doing SportsCenter hits on what the Steelers are going to be. And what's been hanging over the whole conversation is, will they pay Watt? Or will he be a holdout? Will he not show up at camp? Will he miss parts of the season? And this is smart business. Like, you look at Dallas and the Cowboys and how they operate and what they're going to do with a very similar player who's looking for a new contract down there. They're going to wait. Jerry Jones generally always does. He sits back and he goes, I'm not doing it. I'm going to win the negotiation. Pittsburgh realizes they're not going to win this one. They need TJ Watt. He's worth the money. Pay him. Like, it kind of makes sense to me. Like, why wait this out? Why try to put your stake in the ground and save $1 million or $2 million over the course of the whole contract. Just pay the guy because he's such an important piece.
Didn't Dallas do this with CeeDee Lamb and then just signed him in the end?
Yep, and Dak.
So, like,
and Dak Prescott.
What's the point?
It's Jerry Jones.
But like you're not winning, so just optics?
Well, yes. I think part of it is the show. Like I do think an element of it is, the fact that Jerry Jones likes that people are waiting on him. Like this is his whole world, right? Is owning the Cowboys and being Jerry Jones. But Mekhi Parsons, like by all accounts, is looking for a new deal, and he wants to be paid. And now that T.J. Watt has been paid, he's probably looking at that saying, that's my bar. I don't think he should be paid more than Watt personally. He's younger though, and he's probably thinking, all right, I want $38 million guaranteed a year, 39. And once one shoe drops, it's coming. You mentioned CeeDee Lamb. That's what happened in the past where Justin Jefferson got paid. I think Tyreek Hill had been paid. Jamar Chase didn't. He was waiting for it. But then CeeDee Lamb just looked at it and said, okay, if Jefferson's making that, I'll take $2 million less a year. It's not that complicated. Like, this is just where I fall in line. And Jerry Jones waited it out. And I'm sure the same thing's going to happen with Parsons. He's just going to wait it out because then everyone's talking about Jerry and the Cowboys. And if he can create a circus, he'll create a circus.
Yeah, and I get it. I think Micah Parsons is a really good player. But, it's interesting. You talk about the non-guaranteed contracts, and we're seeing, I think, in the last couple of years, teams moving towards, fully guaranteed for some players. Deshaun Watson, I think, was one. This one with T.J. Watt. Like, they're getting a lot closer than they used to be. So I wonder if we don't get at some point in this league where top players are getting, if not the whole contract guaranteed, most of it, and then it kind of funnels through all the way to the bottom guy who's, not guaranteed at all. Because that really, what's there left to negotiate for a top player? If you know the money, I think it's that percentage of guaranteed money, which is ultimately your biggest thing you want to negotiate.
That's what matters, certainly for the players, and it matters for the contract and the cap hits. And like the NFL contracts are complicated in terms of if you cut a guy, if you trade a guy, what it's worth, and how much dead money you have on the cap. And, it's a complicated situation. But ultimately, in order for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers to have success, they needed T.J. Watt. He's there. Same thing applies with the Cowboys. Parsons got to be rushing the passer. He's got to be a machine on the defensive side of things. And he'll get his money. He'll get paid. He'll play. But it will likely be a typical Jerry Jones circus beforehand. All right, so we're back in the swing of things with Major League Baseball. The San Francisco Giants in town tonight. What's interesting is because we've been in the All-Star break, I haven't been paying as much attention to the future. It's been more about what's been going on with the break, and we've been talking a lot about the trade deadline. But I think there's a good chance that this is the last time we see Justin Verlander pitch in Toronto tonight, who's on the mound for the Giants. And he hasn't had a great statistical year. He doesn't have a great record. I think he's 0-7.
Does he have a win?
No, he doesn't. Still? He's 0-7. His numbers aren't horrendous. He's got like a mid to low 4 ERA. But he's still Verlander. Like he's got the moxie. He's got the aura. He has obviously dominated the Blue Jays many, many times throughout his career. I believe he threw a no-hitter against the Jays.
Here.
Yes, he did. He threw a no-hitter against the Jays. And this could be it. Like this could be the last time we see him pitch in Toronto because he's not a young guy, and obviously he's out in San Francisco now.
Kind of rough seeing these great stars at the end, just like kind of limp to the end.
Mm-hmm.
But like you want to let them have whatever they want. Like if you want to go out on top, Barry Sanders. But man, like I think of like Peyton Manning at the end. It's like he can barely throw it 10 yards.
That was really tough. He couldn't throw the ball down the field.
It's just like
he got replaced. Was it Paxton Lynch?
Yeah,
who replaced him, and he was brutal. And yet they were basically saying we have to replace Peyton Manning. He cannot continue to play. Did he end up going back in at the end and winning the Super Bowl? Right? Like I believe he went out on top, and yet he could barely throw the ball. But that was all Von Miller.
Well, and remember he wanted to come back, I think.
Yeah.
And I think like nobody would sign him, if I'm remembering it right.
Yeah, I think it was kind of awkward where basically the rest of the league had suggested this can't continue. You literally can't throw the ball anymore. Like his neck was so bad, his arm strength was so bad. And I don't think Verlander's there. Like I don't think it's painful to watch him pitch, But maybe in a perfect world, and I get it's not a perfect world, and I get you have to put forth your best roster, and they've set it up so Bassett will be on the mound for the Jays tonight. Scherzer going against Verlander tonight would have been really cool. Like, that would have been very cool. Coming out of the break, Scherzer would have been ready. You could have timed them out that way. Again, I get why Bassett's going. Bassett should go. You're going to line up your rotation, according to plan. But the idea of these two who were teammates once in Detroit going at it one more time would have been pretty cool tonight. But, yeah, Verlander on the mound, and we'll see what the Jays have in store. We'll get more into that with Steve Phillips coming up just after 5. And we'll come back and get into day 2 of the Open Championship, where Scottie Scheffler had himself a day. He is a solo leader at the Open Championship. Bob Weeks on that later this afternoon. It's going to be tough to beat him, dude. When he's in the mix, when he's in the mood, it will be very difficult to beat him. Yeah.
When he wants to win?
Basically, when he's in the mood to win. He doesn't know why he wants to win, but this one evidently through 36 holes, he's decided he wants to win, and he's willing to play it out. So more on that. And Jonas, you missed out on the Dakota Joshua trade yesterday. We'll see where you stand on the Leafs after their big swing yesterday and their big acquisition with Dakota Joshua now officially a member of the Maple Leafs. So more on that still to come as well. Jason Strudwick in here with Jonas Siegel. I'm Brian Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Jonas Siegel, Jason Strudwick, Steve Phillips in about 45 minutes. Jays, Giants tonight. Verlander, who has 2 no-hitters against the Jays, which, yeah, I mean, this guy, obviously first ballot Hall of Famer. Curious where he will land when all is said and done in terms of all time. You know, there's so many great pitchers, you know, historically in baseball, but, you know, the big 3 of this era would be Verlander, Kershaw, Scherzer. Felt like Lincecum was going to be like the 4th guy, right? And then it just an amazing career, like 5 unbelievable years and just couldn't pitch anymore. Crazy. So anyway, Verlander on the mound tonight. We've got a signing out in Winnipeg. Gabe Velarde, who is a restricted free agent, has signed a 6-year deal. It sounds like $7.5 million per. But he's been a good find for them. Like, he was basically the main piece in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade to L.A., and he's played really well with Sheffler, played really well with Kyle Connor. Health issues, you know, seems to be injured a lot. Like, has had real kind of inconsistencies in terms of staying in the lineup. But if you're Winnipeg, I think it's a good play. He's a young guy that's fit in well. He wants to be there long term. That contract, that number's around what Matthew Nyes got, right? Seems appropriate. I think it's a pretty good deal for both sides.
Yeah, I think absolutely. What I like is so young. I am a little bit worried about the injuries, but he's 20-plus goals every year, right? I think he can have a higher end than that. I think last year he almost got to 30 and he was missing a dozen games or so for injury-wise. But, you know, Nick Ehlers is gone. So now, you know, he could maybe get a bit more opportunity in different roles with different guys. But I like this one, and I still love that trade they did with LA for PLDB.
Oh, yeah. And listen, Pierre-Luc Dubois redeemed himself last year, right? Like, he played really well, to his credit, in Washington. Better. But he was horrendous in L.A. Like, horrendous in L.A. And it worked out very well. And, I mean, that was an example of certainly not as extreme. You know, we keep talking about Marner's departure and, you know, how they're going to fill that role. But, like, based on talent, Pierre-Luc Dubois was a big talent with high expectations that was supposed to play a big role for the Jets, and they moved off him, and they were better than ever. You know, now let's see what happens with Ehlers leaving. That's going to continue to get tested. But, yeah, I mean, sometimes trades happen because the player wants them. In that case, it was Pierre-Luc Dubois. In this case, it was because Marner wanted to leave. Clearly, he wanted to go to Vegas. You don't just pack up shop and say, well, we can't possibly compete anymore. You got to put the pieces together and find a way to make it work.
I don't know about you guys. Have you found this summer to be really weird in terms of some of the contracts and trades and stuff in the NHL?
In which way?
I mean, you're just like even the Joshua trade, like the Marchment trade, you're just seeing like players get kind of just dealt for like dumped. Basically nothing.
Basically, yeah.
And like even this contract, like a couple years from now, if he continues to ascend, it's going to look like a steal. Like, it's the same thing with Nyes. Like, as the cap continues to go up, like with the projections that we have, Nyes is going to be like the equivalent of like a $6 million player in a couple of years. And if he's like a 35-goal guy, same with Velarde, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It feels like the NHL's in a weird place. Like, I don't totally understand it, honestly.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Strud.
You know, Just, it's funny you bring that up because I was talking to a buddy about that Dakota last night, that even the Marchment one, like, those guys are the kind of guys you want in the playoffs, right? You look for that big body that can skate and tap in some goals. Like, I think for sure Marchment's over 20. Now Dakota, I'm not sure if he'll get there, but those are the guys I want, and they're just floating around for almost nothing. You know, a future draft pick at, you know, right now. So why aren't more teams trying to grab them that maybe need that big body? And because we're going to be here, we're going to all be doing this again. And what is it? The trade deadline, whatever day it is, like March 5th, they got to find a big body. They had one. They could have had this guy for pennies on the dollar as far as draft picks. So it's a really good point you make.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And guys like that come the trade deadline are the ones that teams are always 100%. Trying to pursue, and they're willing to pay more. Yet in July, 4th round pick in 2028, and you can have them. And especially, you know, for teams that are like still trying to fill out their roster. You know, like Marchman's still a young guy, relatively speaking, and Joshua is 29. Like, you're telling me one of the bottom teams in the 7 or 8 worst teams in the league that feel like they want to grow and improve, they wouldn't pay a third rounder to pick that guy up? You know, like San Jose, they have so much room, and you know, the Utahs and the Chicagos, and yet that obviously wasn't the case. It was the Leafs of all teams that said, we'll take him. Like, we'll give up the 4th round pick for him.
His situation is different. Like, I would feel better about the Leafs and their roster if they had gotten Marchment, just because he's better. Mm-hmm. His contract's, I think he's entering the last year of his deal.
Marchment, yes.
Yeah, but like the upside is higher offensively. I think he can play higher in the lineup. But it's interesting, like what they've done, like with Joshua and with Michelli. They're just like basically taking bets for free. Like, they didn't give up really anything for both guys. And like, if one bounces back, if both bounce back, like suddenly you've just added a top 9 forward for nothing. And like, the contracts will look better if those players bounce back. But it's interesting, like, that this is how they've decided to approach it. And I think like Joshua, I don't mind the bet just because he fits the style of the coach. I still wonder, as you might imagine, Hayes, like where they're going to score from. But
yeah,
I don't like. It's funny with their offseason. Like, I don't mind and actually like a lot of what they've done, like individually. I just don't know what it adds up to is kind of my question.
Yeah, and I think that gets back to your original commentary on the offseason, that there just hasn't been a lot available and there isn't a lot going on. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, that's the truth. Like, Marner was a big fish. Nick Ehlers was a big fish. But beyond that, Besser went back to Vancouver, Tavares back to Toronto. All 3 Florida guys stayed in Florida. You know, Noah Dobson was available. Credit the Habs. They went out and sniffed that out and picked him up. Now, they had to give up, you know, obviously assets to do that. But I do think, you know, it just appears as if because there's been so much money and there's been so much flexibility offered to almost every team, like post-COVID, they've just decided to invest in their own guys, you know, and it just there hasn't been a lot of opportunity. Like, that's the thing with, like, Marner leaving. You, as we've stated 15,000 times in the last 3 weeks, you were never going to replace him 1 for 1. You can't. You're not even going to replace him 3 for 1.
Yeah.
Like, no. Like, if you were to put together a trade of Michelli, Waugh, and Joshua for Marner, obviously you would get laughed. Like, you would be fired. Your own owner would say, "Why did you even waste people's time? You're out." That's not a trade that even is possible to dream up. But he was leaving. He was going to go. He wanted to go to Vegas, so he went to Vegas. So all you can do is deal with what's available to you. And this is the market. Like, this was what's available, and they're still, I'm sure, kicking tires, and other teams I'm sure are still kicking tires. But I think what I'm taking out of this, and it changes, there's ebbs and flows in the league all the time, but I think there's going to be more of an emphasis on drafting and developing again. Like, that's something that I do think is going to hit the Leafs in the nose at some point. Like, you got to start finding your own guys. You got to trust your own people. You got to bring up your own people that you can control, that you have on ELCs, that you can get to, you know, when they're RFAs, so you can give them a 6-year deal like Nyes and like Velarde. And that applies to every team in the league. Like, the best way to build up your program, it's the most difficult, and you have to get lucky and you have to be patient. But draft, develop, let them grow up together. Gives your GM a lot of options if you want to do that.
Yeah, that's a really long range and mature view, and I'm with you for sure. But right now, where the Leafs are, like, they're trying to get to a winning point right now. So I think there has to be 2 streams. I think you have to have the stream you're talking about, which is drafting, developing, and being patient, but then trying to mine some, you know, diamonds in the rough that you might find. And you just highlighted the 2 guys that the Leafs traded for. You can go over to Europe, look around there, maybe college, free agents, whatever, and try to figure that out. And then the trades. So I think you have to have multiple ways of approaching it. Mm-hmm. And I always, when I talk to guys and, you know, that are young players and, you know, what's the team doing for you? Well, they don't have a lot of people working with me for development. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, there's no cap on that. I'd be spending money like crazy, like a drunken sailor, like the PA guy that went down and
yes.
What's his name?
Player
Lloyd Howell
engagement.
Jr.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Lloyd, I'd be spending money like that guy, but I'd be spending it on development of my team and drafting scouts and development. Those things, because if you can find a fifth rounder that becomes even a player, just a player on your team, that is massive. Or if you can turn a guy who's maybe a borderline player into an NHL player, that's worth it. That investment's worth it when what you think about you have to trade for in assets. So I don't know, Jonas, you're a lot more dialed in than I am, but I don't understand why teams aren't investing heavily, really heavily in those three areas.
I can only speak for here in Toronto. They do. Like, they invest a ton in that stuff. I don't know if that's going to continue now with Keith Pelly. Like, I don't know what the cost-cutting stuff is going to look like, but they definitely do that. They just haven't had they've traded a lot of picks, number one, and they haven't had a lot of success at, like, actually hitting on picks. Like, Knives is, like, is he like the best non-first round pick they've had in, I don't know, ever?
Yeah.
But he's the exception. If you look at like forwards that they've hit on in the last 10 years, I looked at this recently. I think it's like Nyes, Robertson, Holmberg, Minton, who's gone, Gerbenkin, who's gone. No, I just mean forwards. Yeah, and if you want to add forward, you can add a Wall, and then like defense, it's like there's Sandin, Liljegren. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something that they've done well enough. And part of it obviously is trading first round picks, but like teams find players outside the first round all the time. So, and
that's the key. Yep. That's the key outside the first round, right? You got to find some gems there and then develop them too. It's not something, the player didn't develop. Well, what could we have done differently? How could we help that player?
Well, yeah, I mean that and like you said, there's no cap on it, and there's no rhyme or reason for why you can't do it. But if you don't pick the right guy, it doesn't matter who you have working for him. If he's not a player, he's not a player. You know, like you got, and it's diamond in the rough stuff. Once you get outside of the top, even 10, it's a gamble. It's a crapshoot. You know, like, is there a big difference between the guy being picked 28th and the guy being picked 38th? No, but the 28th overall gets to call himself a first-round pick, right? Where the 38th overall is a second-round pick. But there isn't that much difference, and that's, you know, there's different ways to build. There's different ways to do it. I get it. It's not, and everyone's in the same boat. The competitive teams, if you're a very competitive team for a long time, you're going to trade picks, you're going to trade prospects. But I guess, you know, I'm not even talking about the Leafs in particular. I'm just saying if the league is going to be more about keeping your players, you know, then you got to make sure you have the right guys in order to pay them. You know, like if there's just not going to be a free agent market, and maybe it's different. Maybe next year there are 4, 5, 6, 7 stars that make it. But if the stars in particular keep staying and you get to July 1st and it's more depth players, then you're not ever going to build a Stanley Cup winner on July 1st. Like, and maybe that's never happened anyway. But that's kind of what I take out of the last 2 or 3 weeks.
But you probably
there weren't enough impact players available.
But I don't think you should be trying to build your team in July 1st. I think you're trying to fill holes, right? Trying to fill the top of your roster. Like, tell me the best July 1st signing in recent memory, right? I mean, Tavares has been productive for the Leafs. I think Hyman's another guy who's been productive. Right?
Yep. Hyman was a great one. Yep.
For the Oilers. You know, I think back to a number of years ago, but like Chris Drury and Scott Gomez both signed with the Rangers. It helped them. I don't think they didn't take them to the Stanley Cup, right? And so, you know, I think you're trying to just find, I don't know, just slot guys in and fill a seconds line or a third line or fourth. I mean, like Nick Ehlers is a good player, but is he changing the whole dynamic of what's going on in Carolina?
No, he's not. And conversely, if you're in Winnipeg, you probably wanted him to stay.
Oh, yeah.
But you can live without him, right? You have to. That's the sport. And I think this is a win, again, getting back to the news of the hour, that Gabe Vilardi signed a 6-year deal at reportedly $7.5 million. Is now you got him on term, you got Sheffler on term. Connor's going to be a big one. I think Kyle Connor, does he have 1 year left on his deal?
Yeah,
I think so.
They can extend him right now.
As of now. And that one is one I would think they are actively trying to do. You know,
that's any extensions? Has there been any extensions?
No. Not that I'm aware of. Not a year out. Like, obviously McDavid being the biggest one that we're waiting for.
Well, Eichel? I thought Eichel would have signed it already. I don't know. I'm not an insider. I thought Eichel would be a slam dunk.
Yeah.
I want to stay here. This is good. I like it here. I've won a cup. Like, to me, you believed in me as a team. You know, like it's okay. I can do the searching. Like I thought for sure that was going to be done.
And the Marner bar is there now. You know, like I'm sure he's going to say I got to make more than him. You know, maybe he takes 12 on the nose, but I would think if I'm Michael, you know, I play a more prominent position. I think he's a better player, and he's been there longer, and he helped them win a Stanley Cup. So he's probably like, all right, I'll take 13. Like, it shouldn't be that complicated. You know, if Marner's making 12, I'll take 12.5 or 13. But that maybe it is complicated because maybe Eichel's looking at it saying, well, Draisaitl signed for 14 a year ago, and now the cap's going up. I want 14. You know, and then that's when it gets a little bit dicey all of a sudden because Vegas, you know, has been a team that's been very cap compliant. They've been very active. They brought in a lot of different players. They've been probably the most proactive team in hockey, maybe in pro sports, period, the last decade. But if you lock in Eichel at $13 million, $14 million, and you got Marner at 12, like those are two big commitments all of a sudden. Those are two guys making a lot of money.
Do you guys ever wish that there was more player movement in the NHL?
Sure. I mean, for the nature of our business, it's always way more compelling when you get, you know, crazy trades and more movement. But it's on the players in order to push for that.
But so how would that work? Like shorter contracts? Is that like the only way? Like if you're the NHL and you were like, we want to have more intrigue around our league. We want players to move around more. We don't want players just staying with one team their whole career.
I don't think that. I think the way around it is get rid of no movement clauses. Get rid of no trade clauses.
I agree.
That's what stops trades.
Yeah, I guess that's
teams
true.
would trade players in a heartbeat. It's players don't allow it because I think the nature of our conversation is proving even if you can only sign a 3-year deal, players will just keep re-upping if they like where they are, right? Like the players that get comfortable somewhere, like Sidney Crosby would have signed 21-year deals in Pittsburgh, right? He doesn't need an 8-year deal or a 7-year deal. I don't think the term matters. You know, it's on the players' mentality that they'd want to do it, and I'm not sure they do collectively as hockey players. It's get rid of no trade clauses. Get rid of no movement clauses. You do that. Like if that, put it this way, what we just saw, if they didn't exist, Mikko Rantanen's a Maple Leaf, more than likely, right? Mitch Marner's in Carolina down the stretch last year. There's a blockbuster deal, but no movement clauses exist, and the player to his right executed his. That's the way to get movement going in the league, but I don't even think Lloyd Howell Jr. would accept that. Started giving up those, man.
No.
The PA's
even
not
at his
doing
best, when he's really rolling his bars, even he wouldn't go for that. I guess the other thing this is pretty crazy, but you negotiate a buyout with your player, and then that money is not on the books. So I make $10 million. I want to buy. Okay, you want to buy me out? Give me 8. Okay, done. Now that money is buried, and then the guy just goes to free agent, and that doesn't sit on your salary cap for years to come. You don't multiply it by 2 or whatever it is. So that would be pretty dramatic. The rich teams would love that.
Yes, well, and that's why it'll never happen because Bettman will always think about the lowest common denominator and the smaller market teams, and the owners will say that's not fair. We can't buy those people out, and owners don't want to spend more money than they have to. I like that idea, and it does give you flashbacks. Like to remember, like coming out of the lockouts, how cool it was when each team had 2 buyouts, and there were all these debates like who are they going to use it on? You got to buy that guy out, and like it's so impersonal. Like if you're the player and you're listening to
it's hurtful
bozos like us, be like, you got to use it on Jonas. You have to buy that stiff out. He stinks. He's not worth the price. Like you're just like, I'm trying to get back in the league. We just voted on the CBA, and I'm getting bought out. You know what's happening here? But I like the buyout world. I like that world.
It is crazy, and that'd be a crazy situation. But I keep going back to when the Leafs asked Marner about moving his no-trade clause for Rantanen. And I wonder if that wasn't kind of the last nail in the coffin. Because that's hurtful. You've worked so hard for this one team you're drafted by, and then, like, we like you, but we like this guy a little bit better over here. And maybe by then they felt they weren't able to sign him. I don't know. But, Jonas, I don't think that helped that whole situation. It wouldn't help in any situation.
We have no way of knowing, like, if it would have changed history. I agree with you. Like, I don't know what it was. Like, he was never going to say yes. Like, he was, like, there was no way. So, like, why risk it? Like, if it like hurts you by like 5%, but maybe they just knew like he was gone already. I don't know.
I think it's more likely that's the case, man. This guy was going to Vegas. They knew it. He knew it.
But you had all the reporting at the time, Hayes, that they were still trying to sign him. And,
yes.
he just wasn't playing ball.
Wasn't even answering them.
So it's I don't know.
I don't sympathize for him at all in that scenario. How dare you ask me? They've been trying to negotiate
what's to be gained by it? What do you think is going to happen?
Maybe, once in a million chance he goes, fine, I'll go to Carolina. I want out of here. And you get Rantanen. It's worth for a trade of depth, probably not worth it. For a guy like Rantanen, where you could, basically fulfill one superstar with another.
Yeah, fair.
I don't know. I guess in the end, in retrospect, put it this way. Let's say it played out the exact same way, but they never asked him. And then it gets reported on July 18th. Turns out Rantanen wanted to come here, but they didn't even ask because they didn't want to make Marner uncomfortable. Don't you think you look back on that and say, what are you doing? Why didn't you ask him?
I look back at last summer and think that.
Exactly.
Why
not continue that at the trade deadline? Why would it stop at the trade deadline?
Yeah.
It's worth a shot. Ultimately, he had the right to say no, which he did. I totally understood why he said no. But and maybe it didn't help slightly Strud, but it sure seems like this guy had property in Vegas this time last year. Was basically ready to go, and Vegas was always the spot. That's another thing. He never hit the market. He was going to Vegas. Fair. That's where he was going. It wasn't free agency. It wasn't, I'm going to see what everyone's got. It was Vegas. Clearly, that's where he was going to go.
So he and his agent must have talked about it at some point, right?
Yeah.
Before, and said, I'm going to make a list, and this is my top team. And same with Rantanen. I always think with Rantanen, I get he didn't want to sign in Carolina, but was Dallas his number one choice? Was that his spot for sure? Or was that on his top three? And if you're not sure, why don't you just wait till the summer? You can still sign it later. Now, maybe they had to make that trade for Dallas to make it, but you're that level of player. Everybody wants you. Everybody wants you. Committed for 8 years. You can't wait 3 more months to look at it. I guess they're throwing $100 million at you, Jonas. It changes it a bit, but
yeah, but can you imagine what the Leafs would have paid for Rantanen if he hit July 1?
Well,
giving him whatever he wanted.
Yeah,
blank
possibly.
check. But I'm looking from the player side. You can go anywhere you want. And why not just go check it out? Go look around. Even informal visits to these different cities. I don't know. It's different for a guy signing a 2 or 3 year contract as opposed to 8 times whatever amount of money it is. I never understood that. Was that really Mikko's number one place, Dallas? And it's not saying it's a bad place, but
pretty good
a lot
place.
of other teams are taking him.
Good team.
Yeah. Well, they're pretty competitive every year.
Fair point.
Draft and develop really well.
Although new coach already. Maybe you love Peter DeBoer. Maybe he's I want to play for Pete, and all of a sudden 3 months later, DeBoer's out.
Meet our new coach.
Yeah, here's Glenn going.
Here's Glenn.
It's okay. Well, all right, Glenn, I guess we're working together for the next 8 years.
And that'll be interesting. See how that goes.
That would be really
Glenn,
interesting,
right? Because he's been there before, and he learned a lot, probably a lot here, dealing with a lot of superstars. I'm looking forward to what that process looks like. In Dallas with him at the helm.
Conference final every year down in Dallas, right? Every year they seem to get there. And now you got a new coach and a couple of new players and a couple of old players out. All right, Steve Phillips in 20 minutes on Jays Giants tonight. We got Verlander on the mound for the Giants, Chris Bassett on the mound for the Jays. What can we expect out of Vladdy, Bo? How big of a moment is this for Ross Atkins over the next couple of weeks? Lots to get into with Steve. We'll catch up with Mark Masters a little bit later this afternoon. Bob Weeks on day 2 over at the Open Championship, where Scottie Scheffler has a solo lead, 10-under solo lead after day 2. Dear Hazy B coming up in a couple of hours. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, so I'm sensing a theme here. We were talking about this out of the gate, that the former leader of the NFLPA, Lloyd Howell Jr., based on an investigation, turns out Lloyd was got caught with his hand in the cookie jar a couple times. He was using the PA's expense card and basically their fund and their money to go to strip joints in Atlanta and Miami, and he was in VIP rooms. And it sounds like Lloyd was having a very good time. But needless to say, the union not overly ecstatic about that. And shout out to my buddy Chris. Chris Tamas just sent me a DM on Instagram and said, how about this? And this story, I guess, came out last night, I believe, that the mayor of North Bay, a guy by the name of Peter Chirico, I believe, I guess there was a woman who filed for a Freedom of Information Act request to gain access to his expense reports. And evidently, it sounds like, allegedly, Peter was spent upwards of $16,000 on personal items in 23 and 24 and used the city corporate card to pay for all of it, which included gas, car washes, at least $3,200 in seasonal golf memberships, which I love. He was getting golf carts, snacks, soft drinks. He also bought packs of DeMaurier Select cigarettes, beer and wings at hockey games, car repairs. Like, this guy was having a field day, courtesy of the beautiful city of North Bay. So I guess Lloyd can feel like he's got some support out there, is what I'm trying to get across here. Even mayors in great Ontario cities are getting a little carried away with the expense cards.
I wonder what the finance department people must see on some of these expense reports. Just like in every company. They must be like this person's trying to get away with this?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, this is interesting. DeMaurier Select.
Yeah, that seems okay.
Can't imagine that would be needed to run City Hall, but I don't know. Is there, cigarette dispensers that I'm not aware of? Like, but yeah, even the car repair, like Gary's, workshop, Gary's mechanic in North Bay. It's like, why are you getting your Nissan tuned up, courtesy of the city of North Bay?
He can come back from this. He just has to pay it back, right? Whereas for Simon Howell III, like, that's a lot harder, right? Like, there's no way that you're not coming back from that one. Like, that's a hard press. You're just like, guys, I made a mistake. I didn't realize that my discretionary funds weren't being used for a membership down at North Bay.
Well, this one, I guess he was at Osprey Links, a golf course up there. Which, again, I'm guessing the explanation will be, well, I was bringing people out and I was trying to represent the city and I was helping
stay healthy.
Out. Yeah, I'm trying to stay healthy, exactly. And then, at the same time, trying to keep a balance by smoking cigarettes, at the same time. But, beers and wings, and I guess he was getting battalion tickets. I support that. Sure you would too, Strud, right? You're a CHL alum. I think that's important for the mayor to get tickets to their local hockey
be seen,
team.
Right? Yeah. Seen and be heard, right? Being around there, cheering for the team, smoking a dart outside.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. On the city, of course, on the arm. But, man, let's see. I'm sure there's more that we can find. Send them in. Twitter, Instagram, whatever. But we got the head of the PA and the mayor running the beautiful city of North Bay that evidently we're not told you're not supposed to use the expense card for your own personal activity, which is, that's an understandable kind of mistake to make. It happens. Happens to the best of us. All right, hour 2 coming up. Steve Phillips will join us on Jays Giants starting tonight. And what is reasonable to expect out of Ross Atkins over the next 2 weeks? Biggest 2 weeks of his tenure in Toronto? I think he could make that argument. Could be the biggest 2-week stretch of his tenure as the GM of the Blue Jays. So we'll catch up with Steve, get his take on all of that. Mark Masters coming up, Bob Weeks on the Open. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
water, wind, and speed. It's nation against nation.
And look how close they are!
In a global race for sailing supremacy.
Oh my Lord, disaster!
Sail GP lives here.
The CEBL lives here on TSN and TSN Plus.
It's Mail It In Friday.
The plant called and said if you don't come in tomorrow, don't bother coming in Monday.
Woohoo! 4-day weekend.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Hour 2 OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Jonas Siegel, Jason Strudwick. We've got Mark Masters later this afternoon. Get into some hockey talk with Mark, but also a little tennis talk with Mark, right? We're only one slam left, and I guess Jeannie Bouchard is going to retire. I read that earlier this week. One of the more fascinating careers and, flash in the pan careers ever. Like when she came out of nowhere and was, I believe, in a Wimbledon final, and she went deep into the Aussie Open at one point. I thought, okay, Jeannie's going to be the greatest Canadian tennis player of all time, and then it just completely fell off a cliff. And Bianca Andreescu was kind of followed in her footsteps, albeit obviously winning the U.S. Open and winning the National Bank Open here in Toronto. But Bianca's not really in the mix anymore either, which is really disappointing.
Would you guys rather be, this is not a sports question, but it's related to what you're talking about, Hayes. Would you rather be a musician who has like one amazing song, but nobody else remembers anything else you did? Or you're just like, you're good, you're solid, but you're not really breaking through? Like,
that's a great question. What do you think would make more money? Probably a one-hit wonder. Do you think a one-hit wonder makes more money?
I think a steady touring, you put out decent albums. Like you have your little band, you
got a
your
following.
Fans, yeah, but like people don't really know you. It's kind of like, would you rather get to like one Wimbledon final and like maybe you don't win, or you're just like a grinder,
consistently on tour for like 12 years and not bad, couple of endorsement deals. Yeah, I'd probably take the longevity, I guess, when you put it that way. But if you give me the option to actually win a slam, I'm taking the win. Like if I'm Bianca Andreescu, obviously she's still young enough. I'm sure she's got confidence that she can get back into the swing of things. But they can never take that U.S. Open away from her. Like she's got it. You have a slam. Like, and that's a lot of money. The amount of endorsement money she made from that, like she blew up. She was the biggest thing in Canada following that. You can't. That's a better career than, someone who, a Pospisil or something like that. It was just on tour for a long time, good player, made some money, competed here or there. I'll take the big splash and then kind of fade.
That's the equivalent of the one-hit wonder, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, that's the truth. I think that's how you'd have to define Bianca Andreescu's career. Like, Jeannie didn't win. Jeannie was competitive for a year and a half, 2 years, but never ended up winning a slam. But, yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, the Canadian tennis has had these, like, ebbs and flows over the last decade where I thought Shapovalov would be more competitive and a number of other guys, and just hasn't really played out that way.
Doesn't everybody want their moment, though? Don't you want to have that one moment where you are on top? And so, like, look, I played in NHL a long time, and I think it'll be unlikely I go down in history as one of the top 100 defensemen of all time. At this point, there's been Makar's probably taken my spot. So, I was there. I was there a long time, but I was never at the very top, right? Oh, I guess I was at the top, but I wasn't at the top of the top. So, I guess, what I traded all for 1 year of just insane hockey played by me, I might.
Yeah,
to
like
be
a
at the very top.
A Norris season, and then 3 years later you're out of the league.
Yeah.
I think
like Jim
that.
Carrey, the goalie. Remember, wasn't that the guy, the net detective?
The net detective.
Great nickname.
He won a Vezina, right? Didn't he win Rookie of the Year and a Vezina?
I think he did.
Yeah, and then again, 2-3 years later, you couldn't find him. For the most part. All right, Jays Giants tonight. The unofficial second half. Beginning down at the Rogers Center, Chris Bassett on the mound against Justin Verlander. And here's our TSN Baseball Insider joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Steve Phillips. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you.
Great to be with you, and we've been more pumping up the fact that Verlander's in town, and this very well could be the last time he pitches in Toronto. I believe he has 2 no-hitters against the Jays at the Rogers Center, so he loves this building. He's obviously going to the Hall of Fame. He's an all-time great. Curious, where he ranks for you. You don't have to give me a specific slotting, but in terms of the great pitchers of all time, like is he top 20, top 30, 40, 50? Where would Verlander fall on the Steve Phillips list?
Yeah, I think that he's, I've got him behind Pedro Martinez in that range. I think Pedro was more dominant than Verlander was, but Verlander, clearly a Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. I have ahead of Messina on the list to give you some sense as to where they go. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I think he's probably, if you start to look at it, probably top 25. He was a guy that when he first came up, he would go out and he would throw 95, 96 in the first few innings of the game. And then he would want to throw 99 on his 99th pitch in the game. And he did. He held back early, so he had more fastball to go to later. And he just really was just such a dominant pitcher and so competitive on the mound. And, it's a shame because he's 0-7 this year. He's yet to get a win. He's searching for it a little bit right now. The guy who threw a couple no-hitters isn't around anymore. He's really searching for it. And so, he's just not the same pitcher. He's competitive. He keeps them in the game, but they've not scored enough. So I certainly would hope the Jays come out swinging aggressively on him.
Yeah, that's certainly got to be the plan going into tonight. And, it's a big series for them to start at home coming out of the break. They stumbled a little bit, coming down the stretch, losing 3 of 4 to Chicago and the Athletics. But now that you're reset, all eyes appear to be on Vladdy. Putting him aside, is there another guy in the order, specifically, one of the hitters, that you have your eyes on that you believe should be relishing this opportunity, considering where the team is, how good they've been playing? If so, who is that guy?
Well, for me, look. They've gotten a lot out of Clement and Addison Barger and Springer and Kirk. And Lucas. To me, it comes down to Bichette and Guerrero. That I think there's likely to be some regression in the complementary players. They've all played very well. But the league's going to make an adjustment to them, and it may take them a little bit of time to adjust back. And in the meantime, it's not that Vladdy and Bichette have been bad. They've not. They've been good, but they're better than good, and they need to drive the baseball. They need to slug, and that part of their game has to blossom right now. And I do think that coming out of the All-Star break, I think that what I would want, and I always thought this with a manager, you've got to come out and force action, force movement. I would start runners. I would get guys moving. I would steal bases. I would hit and run. I think you've got to create movement and not make it passive. Don't make it, base to base and do everything. Try to force things to happen so you get your players jump-started into energy in the game. And so it'll be interesting to see how John Schneider goes out there and tries to manage it, because to me it's all about movement and action when you come out of a 4-day layoff.
Steve, is there one of those guys you mentioned, the first half surprises, that you think is best set up to keep this up in the second half?
Well, Springer, the veteran, at least has some idea about the grind of an entire season. One of the things that young position players need to learn is just, how to grind out 162 games. Even the minor league season is shorter than the major league season, and it's different. And those dog days where it starts getting hot and you're in August, they've got a book on you now where they've seen you a couple times. You're facing those teams the second time around, and they're all going to start to attack the weakness. But I think Barger, to me, was so critical, because without Santander, they needed a left-handed bat to give them some thunder. And, I think that Springer's been the most valuable player, but I think that Barger's been the most important player for them, because you take him out of the mix and what he did and the timing with which he did some of those things, and the left-handed nature of it, which allowed the right-handers on either side of him to not have a right-handed pitcher get into a rhythm where you can start to throw slider, split, two-seam fastball, and you get into a rhythm if you have a bunch of right-handers in a row. So Barger's been big, and I think it's important for them that he keeps going. But in the meantime, when Santander and Varsho come back, they don't have to be better than they've ever been. They just need to be what they've been. And that's for Varsho, a guy that can steal a base, and he's got some thunder. He's going to swing and miss. He's not a big on-base percentage guy, but he plays with heart and he plays with grit. And Santander, he's got to come in and slug. It's what he got brought in for. You don't need him to be more than that. You don't need 44 homers the rest of the season. But can you give me 18 homers for the rest of the season? Can you give me 15 homers for the rest of the season and give this team some of the power they need?
Steve, we're working our way towards the trade deadline in the baseball. So when you look at it, how aggressive would you be if you were in charge of the Blue Jays as far as, bringing players in, but, maybe mortgaging some of your future assets for that as far as young players?
Yeah, so ideally, I'd love to trade for players that I can control beyond just this season. So not necessarily the rental player. If I'm going to give up talent, I'd rather do it to where I've got some controllability to offset the fact I'm giving up a prospect that somebody can have for 6 years before they become a free agent. But I do think this is an important year for this franchise. And, you always have more prospects than you think. Than what other people think and what the grading systems say. And so, for me, I think they have to be aggressive. I think they have to go for it now. I think they need to give up as much talent as they can, not mortgaging all of it. Like Mark Shapiro won't do it because, remember, he criticized Alex Anthopoulos for giving everybody up when he did. Now, they went to the playoffs 2 years in a row, and I personally would have been okay with what Alex did. I did it. I gave up prospects. I think prospects can get general managers fired. I wait for this prospect. I don't trade to get a major league player. I don't get the guy that I need to compete. I don't make the playoffs. Then this young guy is going to turn into the star for me. Then he sort of fizzles out a bit. Then he gets hurt. And the next thing you know, I'm out the door because I waited for this, 21-year-old to turn into something. So I want to win now. I don't know what next year is going to bring. So I generally was always more aggressive at the deadline. And my thought was, it's up to us to replenish our farm system. We need to draft well. We need to develop well. Let's go ahead and give what we need to do to win, and let's go find the next round of prospects in the organization.
With Steve Phillips, our TSN Baseball Insider, Chris Bassett on the mound for the Jays tonight. It's been pretty interesting, yet somewhat predictable, I guess, how Gausman, Bassett, and Barrios have been almost indistinguishable in terms of their stat line and the way the innings pitched. I think all three of them are within 6 innings pitched. Two of them have given up, I want to say, 11 home runs. The other one's given up 12. Barrios got the best ERA, but not by a substantial margin. So, is that when you look at their starting rotation, if they're not going to acquire anyone better than those three guys, how would you feel about those three? Let's say they win the division, end up with a top seed, and they get right into the DS. Games 1, 2, and 3. Is it that simple? It's Barrios, Gausman, and Bassett, and you're happy with that? Where would you stand on that?
Yeah, it's not exactly where I want it to be. I would like to get somebody in front of them. The question is, who is going to be available that slots in front of them? What's the price for that pitcher? In the meantime, the goal is, if I can't find somebody in front of them, I want to shorten the game. I want to be able to take the pressure off, go out there and give me 5 innings, and then give me – because in the playoffs, it's you play a day, you're off. You play another day, you're off. Then you play 2 days, or you play 2 and then you're off. You play 3, you're off. So you can really use your key relievers almost throughout the course of a playoff series, but then you're going to have to really build the depth of that bullpen. And that's probably the direction they're going to have to go, because the competition for impact starting pitching, like Zach Gallen's a great name, but he's got an ERA over 5 this year. I like Merrill Kelly, but I think he's probably a little bit better than the guys that they have right now, the way he's pitched this year, but not dramatic. So he's not going to be a shutdown pitcher necessarily. You're going to match up against Skubal or somebody like that. So, they're going to have to really pitch the most quality innings, even if it's not the best at the beginning of the game. or maybe the best at the end of the game, but give me the most in between. That's kind of how I built my staffs back in the day. That I had Al Leiter was my ace, Mike Hampton was my ace, but they weren't necessarily, Randy Johnson and those guys back then, Greg Maddux back then, but they were a tick below that. But they still won a lot of games and gave us a chance to win every day. But I wanted to make sure that I had all kinds of bullpen behind them, that no matter what the opposition threw out there, we could match up with them. And I think that may be where you see Ross and Mark Shapiro really go to fortify that bullpen if they can't find that pitcher to go to the front of the rotation.
Jays Giants tonight. I said prior to you coming on, Steve, this feels like the biggest 2 weeks of Ross Atkins' tenure in Toronto, and he's been here for 9 years. He's been here for almost a decade, Shapiro even more so. Just based on the volatility in the marketplace, 6 months ago, let alone a year ago, the position they've found themselves in, which they've earned, their players have put them in this spot. But now you got the market coming alive here. And fans are fickle. The media is fickle. There's going to be ebbs and flows. Like Atkins, if he can hit a grand slam or so, even a double or a triple, anything like that, hit for the cycle. I don't care which analogy you got to use. If he can do it in the next 2 weeks, he can, I think, almost pull a 180 and basically redeem himself completely within the marketplace. Like, I'm sure he's aware of that. I know publicly he's going to claim that he doesn't care, but he is human. Like, it's a big, big opportunity for him in a market that's been talking a lot about Ross for the last couple of years, and a large majority of that chatter has been negative in tone.
Yeah. So I wrote about it today on .ca that, look, general managers, presidents, they're people too, so they do have feelings. Like, they know.
Yep.
They know. They feel the pressure. They know what's going on. They know that you get hired to get fired in these jobs. And yet, you can't do something that's exclusively for you personally. And I use the example, the Mets are retiring David Wright's number tonight and inducting him into the Mets Hall of Fame. Well, when I was Mets general manager, I knew I was in trouble going into the 2003 season. I could have traded David Wright for, any number of players. I could have traded Jose Reyes for any number. I had people calling me all the time, would you do this, that? And maybe trying to sniff out if I was desperate to do something, but it wasn't the right thing for the organization. So within the constraints of what is reasonable, proper, prudent, and appropriate, you make deals. And I think that for Ross, with where they've gotten themselves to right now, it's time to make that, strike that deal, find the guy. Don't get a guy you need to fix. My experience generally is that when you get a pitcher, they tend to pitch as well for you as they did for the previous team. You might get lucky and have a guy really get hot and everything else. And rarely do you get them all of a sudden they go kaput. Generally they keep doing for you. So if you get a guy who's been pretty good with another team, he's going to be pretty good for you. I want the guy who's pitching great for somebody to come in and be great for us when I made deals. And so I think that's going to be something to be important. Zach Gallen is pitching to a 5.4 ERA. He's got a great name, and his last 3 or 4 starts have been good. And maybe he can get 2 more starts in and sell me that he's back on track again. But if there's a clunker in there and then a mediocre start in there, then he really is the guy with a 5.4 ERA right now. And I can't, hang my hat on his name about what he's been. I want to trade for the guy for what he is.
With Steve Phillips, and, all eyes are going to be on the Yankees and the Red Sox clearly, and we were discussing this earlier in the week. The arms race, so to speak. How does that work in terms of Atkins? Let's use Ross as the barometer here, because we're talking about the Jays and we're up here in Toronto. Like, how closely are you monitoring or trying to get a read on what the Yankees and the Red Sox might be doing over the next 2 weeks?
Oh, yeah, I would. What I did is I read every news clipping from every baseball city, and especially the ones where I thought I might be in competition for the same players. And I think it's safe to say that the Yankees are looking for starting pitching. The Red Sox looking for starting pitching. They're both looking for bullpen help. You know what? The Yankees are looking for a third baseman. And you know what? You might be happy with Ernie Clement at third base. Maybe you think I don't have the resources. But I'll tell you right now that I would be in on the conversations on a third baseman. If the Yankees are in on Eugenio Suarez, I'm going to check in too, just to continue to run the price up, to make it like maybe I'll give you these players in my farm system. Even if I don't want to, I might pretend just to run the price up on it. But I think it's going to be, and I think the other thing to remember is that if you're competing for the same guys, and you'll know by the chatter, the rumors that are out there, then you might pay a little bit more to get a guy, but you understand that you're playing a game of keep away. That if I get them and they don't, that's a double victory. And I think that has value, talent value in a trade that you have to consider when you're trying to figure out what the right deal is to make.
Which of those teams would scare you the most, Steve?
Well, I think probably the Yankees more than the Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think the Rays are not out of this either. The Tampa Bay Rays, there's a real good chance that you could have 4 AL East teams in the playoffs. And then Detroit in the Central and Houston out west. I think the Mariners are going to fade. I don't believe in the Mariners. Listen, what Cal Raleigh's done is amazing, but if he hasn't done it, they certainly wouldn't be 5 games over 500. And I don't know how he can keep doing what he's doing as a catcher. So I do think that the American League East is the one that you got to focus on. And, I think that the Yankees, Red Sox, and Rays in that order are teams that I worry about. But I think all of them are worth worrying over. Those head-to-head matchups when you play those teams. So they play the Blue Jays play the Yankees, I think, coming up in a series right after the first one. I think that you've got to take care of business in those series. Head-to-head matchups are going to matter. Tiebreakers are going to matter. And so that ability to get the advantage over the other team is going to be critical for the Blue Jays to figure out if they win the division and where they seed in the wild card if they fall into that role.
When you look around the league, which player is available, playing well, and a team's going to move them out? Like which player is going to be that player that everyone's going to want at this trade deadline?
Yeah. So I think right now, Arizona's 5.5 out of the wild card, and I just don't believe that they're going to get themselves back into it. And if they do, I think it's the worst thing for them. The goal is to win the most games over the most number of years, and I don't know that this is their year. And this is a great year for them to reset. So Eugenio Suarez is, destroying the baseball this year. Since last July 1st, July 1st, he got 55 home runs. I mean, he is a legitimate middle of the lineup bat. He can play a solid third base. And the Yankees are in on him. The Seattle Mariners are in on him. There are the Cubs. The Cubs, how about this for the Cubs? As good as their offense has been this year, their third baseman, they played 6 players at third base this year. They've totaled a 199 batting average and 1 home run. 1 home run. It's been Pete Crow Armstrong, Kyle Tucker, and Seiya Suzuki that have gotten it done for them. They could use a third baseman. And if you can't get pitching, then you might try to slug people to death. So I think Suarez and then Josh Naylor at first base is for any team looking at a first baseman, he's the preeminent guy. That's why Arizona needs to make trade. You can get 3 prospects for Naylor, 3 for Suarez, 3 for Merrill Kelly, and 3 for Zach Gallen. You could trade Lourdes Gurriel Jr. and you could trade Randall Grichuk, and you've got yourself, 14, 15 prospects. And if you want, go sign all those guys in the offseason and bring them back. But I just think that Arizona is going to be the big difference maker at the trade deadline. They're going to impact this deadline, I think, more than any other team.
Steve, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. It's good to have the games back up and running post, All-Star break, and you're going to be all over it like always. SportsCenter.ca, TSN Radio. We can't wait to do it again next week. Thank you for this.
You got it, guys. My pleasure. We'll talk to you then.
Steve Phillips, our baseball insider. Jays, Giants tonight. And Steve, of course, joining us courtesy of the Maple Toyota Hotline. It'll be interesting to see. That's a good question, Strud. Like, generally, there's always the 1 or 2 guys, in every league. Like, who's available? Is he going to get there? What's the price going to be? What are the arms race going to look like? But it is fitting, and I think somewhat predictable, for Blue Jay fans who have been existing in the American League East for so long, that it's the Yankees and the Red Sox right behind them. You're never going to be comfortable. Like, the likelihood of the Blue Jays or Blue Jay fans being comfortable between now and the end of September, mini Jerry on that seems like 10%, 15%. Like, it's going to be a race. It's going to be ups and downs. They may lose the top seed at some point. They may drop down to 3rd in the division at some point. So what do you prioritize? Just getting in, winning the division, home field and a wild card? I don't know. We'll see. A lot of baseball left to be played. All right. We'll leave it there. Good stuff.
I had a question
They don't
for
call
you
you guys the best in the business for nothing.
I was waiting for you to finish. So when you were talking about Verlander, I started to think about 300 games and 300 game winners. How many wins do you think he has, just off the top of your head?
312.
262.
No way. He hasn't hit 300 yet?
Isn't that nuts?
Really?
And so I'm thinking, like, is there ever going to be a 300 game winner again? And the answer is probably no.
No, probably
Like, if he's not even close.
That's wild.
There's
considering
nobody's close.
He's 41 now or 42.
Yeah.
And a horse, like, is always getting into a position where he can register a win, right, or some sort of a record. You're right. With the way things go now and, pitchers just not giving the innings, so it opens the door for lead changes and things to happen. I don't think we're ever going to see anybody hit 300 again. Like, it does seem like kind of a lost art. Like, even 3,000 strikeouts, Kershaw just hit it.
And he's the 20th.
Yeah.
Which is, like, not a lot of players.
Yeah, which is pretty incredible because Verlander's hit that, I believe, and Scherzer hit that, right? Like, I believe the three of them all have 3,000 strikeouts, do they not?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe all three do. That's why I figured Verlander had hit 300 wins. But you're right. Like, he's not even close. Like, he's not going to pitch another 5 or 6 years to pass that. So it's just not going to happen. I saw, was it Yaroslav Halak, I believe, announced his retirement?
Yeah.
And what did he say? He's just short of 300 wins in his career or something, and that was a number he wanted to get to. But I guess everyone, when you retire, like, there's always a number that's right there that you could reach if you just had one more game, or because there's someone famous in the NHL that finished with like 499 goals.
Wasn't it Modano?
Maybe it was something like that.
Or was there something with Modano in Detroit?
There was 1,500 points or something like that.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. And Babcock sat him and didn't play him and didn't give him the opportunity to get to it. But, yeah, that's tough when you're sitting on 299. And they're arbitrary numbers, but they're bold and they mean something in sports. And you're right, Verlander's not going to hit.
Are you guys
wins.
big round number people?
Yeah, sure. Like, it's just a good
Depends what, though.
barometer. Yeah?
Like 47 goals isn't 50, right? Like, for me, 50 goals is that if you've scored 50 goals in a season, that is legit. That's a legit number. But 47 isn't 50. Like, one of my best buddies is Rob Brown. 49 goals in the NHL one season. Amazing, amazing. But even he says it's not 50, right? It's not 50. That's tough. That's tough for a guy.
Yeah. Well, it gets back to, like, our one-hit wonder stuff. Like, would you take 2 seasons of 49 or 1 season of 50, then the other one, your next high is, like, 12?
I think the one season. Like Chichu. Remember he had, like, 56 that one year?
Yeah, that's right.
Incredible.
And I remember it.
Absolutely, you remember it. 50's so big in hockey. Like,
but hurt his knee, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Didn't he hurt his knee and it slowed him down? He was
he
never
did,
the same.
Chichu, yeah. Well, because that was coming out of the lockout, and that's when, like, Thornton was really cooking, and he was playing with Jumbo, and he just put it on a tee for him. Because I think Thornton won the MVP that year, I believe. Like, Chichu had 56 goals, and Thornton had like 119 points or something,
crazy,
100 assists or 95 assists or whatever. All right, Mark Masters coming up. Bob Weeks on day 2 of the Open Championship. Dear Hazy B in about an hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. right, Mail It In Friday brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Enjoy a $15 lunch at BP where you get an entree, a side, and a drink, and you'll get it all in 20 minutes or less. A fast lunch doesn't have to be fast food. See you for a $15 fast lunch at your local Boston Pizza. Mark Masters coming up here in just a moment. Get his take on where the Leafs stand moving forward. Jonas, you've kind of commented on the acquisition of Dakota Joshua. He's a bottom six guy. It's not going to move the needle that much.
It just feels like they have too many bottom six guys.
They got a lot of guys. Yeah. Like a couple guys are going to have to go, clearly.
Yes.
And it seems like it's David Kampf and Calle Jarnkrok, does it not? Like, more than likely?
Yeah, you would think so. Like, those can't, like, it's hard to see a market for Domi with his contract, and I just don't know where he fits. Like, the puzzle pieces to me, like, I've been trying to play around with the roster, and I don't know. I don't know how it's going to all fit.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. And I was thinking about it last night, too. Like, obviously so much focus on Marner leaving and what it's going to do because he's been so consistent for so long and 9 years where he's always healthy and he always puts up numbers and he can play with everyone. It's going to be a big adjustment. But Matthews is still here. Mm-hmm. And, I think we're kind of looking past his ability and the pressure that should be on him and the expectation that should be on him. And I think in large part because of the season he had last year, the worst season of his career, injury-riddled, never looked like himself. But if that guy is back to where he's supposed to be, mm-hmm. then whoever he plays with, he should drive the line. Like, it should be a great line. You put him and Matthew Nyes together, yes, it can't just be a plug on the right wing, clearly. But put anybody there who's capable of keeping up, he should be able to drive a line that's capable of being a true number one line in the league that produces and dominates just because of who he is and what he's capable of doing.
I agree with that. My question is, like, what effect does it have on him not to play with Marner? And who does he play with? Like, who is that other guy?
Well, Nyes is the guy he played with every game last year.
But Marner is in his own class, obviously. Like,
yeah,
Strutty, like, you see it all the time in Edmonton. Like, Draisaitl and McDavid, they kind of just play with everyone. And,
exactly.
Like, they make it work. And we've seen it before with Matthews. It was a long time ago. Remember, like, Hayes, like, the days he's playing with, like, Marlowe and Kapanen and Janssen and, like...
It won't be easier. I'm just saying I'm not letting him off the hook. Just if he has a down year, Marner left. No. You're 28. You're in your prime. You've won a Hart. You're the best player.
For sure.
You better be ready to cook here. Like, let's get going this season. I have high expectations, and I think he'll meet them. Here's our good buddy, Mark Masters. How you doing, Mark?
Very good, guys. Good to be on with you.
Yeah, good to be on with you. What do you make of kind of the Leafs transactions over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been a weird off season. You see Mitch Marner leave, obviously huge hole, and it's just the way they've been doing it. Actually, I think some pretty good bets. A guy like Matias Michelli. We just see Dakota Joshua coming in here, Nicholas Waugh, and it feels like they're building a better bottom six here. But obviously without the ability to replace Marner, which of course he can't really, unless there's just not many options out there. So it's been interesting, but I like a lot of what they've done at the bottom of the lineup, and I'm sure there's still moves to be made before we get to game one of the season, but kind of a bit of a weird offseason, I guess, so far for the Leafs.
What would you make that third line look like if you could run the team?
I don't know. I'm certainly intrigued by the possibility of Nicholas Waugh and Dakota Joshua together, the size they would have, the ability to play physically and to kind of soak up. You know what? You guys are talking coming in about how, Austin Matthews, what kind of season he's going to have, who he's going to play with. And with the way the lineup's coming together, maybe, he won't be needed to be relied upon to play quite as many defensive zone starts and kind of matchup roles. Certainly, they're going to lean on him a lot for those top-line matchups, but maybe you can free him up a little bit more if you have a responsible line led by Nicholas Waugh and even a Scott Laughton maybe led fourth line that can soak up some defensive zone starts, and you can create more opportunities for a Nyes, Matthews, and whoever, maybe it's Domi over there, line to really do some damage offensively. So I think that there's going to be a bit more, maybe you'll lose the high-end skill of Marner, but maybe a bit more flexibility to make the whole lineup a little bit more effective.
Yeah, that's going to be the question. Like, again, we're focusing so much on depth players, and they're important. But, what we just stumbled across is ultimately what's going to determine what happens here, Mark. And you've been around Matthews his whole career. How do you expect him to handle the absence of Marner?
I think he'll handle it fine. I mean, the big question is health. He says he's going to be healthy, right? That's what he said at the locker cleanout day, assuming he's back to being the guy who's a, Hart Trophy candidate, 60-plus goal scorer. I expect him to be fine playing with Matthew Nyes, whoever's over there, as you said. If anything, I imagine he'll be emboldened, to take even more ownership. He got the C last summer. Now Mitch Marner's gone. I mean, just kind of take control, do your thing. I expect him to come back with a vengeance next season and just be even more motivated to do his thing. He's the best goal scorer that we've seen in this generation. So huge expectations for him next season. I imagine he's going to meet him.
Mark, if Craig Berube called you up this summer, and maybe he has already, could happen, or he texted you, and he said, who do you think I should play on that right side with Matthews? Because you and I both know he didn't like, and maybe hate is too strong, but he was pretty much against playing Nylander with Matthews really like the entire year, even in the playoffs when Marner Matthews wasn't really working. So if he called you and he said, who should I play there? Who is it?
I'd put Domi there. That he and Matthews work well. And I'm sure there's some reluctance, right? The reason maybe Nylander didn't get a long look with Matthews or a longer look with Matthews is just the preference to play Matthews against top lines and in defensive situations. And maybe you don't want Nylander there. Maybe you don't want Domi there, of course. But there's no perfect answer to the question right now. There's no perfect player to slot in there. So I would go, Domi got off to, as we know, did not have a great year last year. I go to him and say, I'm putting you in a prominent spot. You've played well with Matthews. You get this chance to start. Go to work. That's what I would do. Matthews and Nyes have good chemistry. Domi and Matthews have played well in the past. And then, Tavares and Nylander, you should have another effective line there. And then you build out from there and you hope you have a good kind of shutdown third line that you can, entrust to the defensive matchups. And that's what I would do. That's at least how I would start. And obviously things are going to bounce around, but you've got to get more out of Domi during the regular season next year. And I think that's a great way to do it as well.
Masters, I've been screaming all the way from Edmonton that the Leafs need to get a puck-moving D. They don't have enough of it, or they have maybe one. These guys aren't exactly biting. Jonas is nodding his head now, like, yeah, I'm with you, Struddy. But what do you say, Masters? Are you happy with what they have there, or do they need the guy I gave an example to is Shane Gothenspier. Not saying they can get him or he's the perfect guy, but quick puck moving, get it up to this group of forwards.
Yeah, I mean, Brad Treliving acknowledged that in his postmortem of the season, is that they'd like a little bit more of that element on the back end. It's just everyone's kind of locked in on the defensive side, and they focus so much on trying to fill some holes up front that it's kind of been a forgotten thing. Like, everyone's locked in there. A lot of questions about Morgan Riley. He's obviously got the no-move clause. Maybe he gets a bounce back. I suspect he'll be back on the top power play unit with Marner moving on as the quarterback. We'll see. Obviously, he's been there in the past. Maybe you can, with 1 year under his belt with Craig Berube's system, he'll be a bit more comfortable and can just, be more of himself. It's a question mark for sure, but they have lacked that, and it doesn't look like there's an easy answer to that question either. But I would agree that they could use that. It certainly was evident that it was lacking. That said, I still think they have the pieces to make a really good defense core, and maybe that's something that they have to address during the season at some point here, see how things play out. Same as with the top six forward that they need. It might take some time for all the pieces to go into place. I like that Treliving's been patient here and seems to be willing to be patient, not rush into anything, not make a mistake, and just wait for the right piece to kind of become clear, or the right option to become clear.
With Mark Masters. So we were talking about the announcement earlier this week that Jeannie Bouchard is going to retire after the National Bank Open, which the women are in Montreal this year. So it'll be, back in her hometown, and that's going to be it. And you were kind of the Jeannie whisperer, Masters. Like, you had access to Jeannie. You were the one that was right in there breaking stories and talking to her and interviewing her a lot over her career. I don't even know how to describe the career of Jeannie Bouchard, because of, it was a flash in the pan, clearly, but it was so big. She was so popular. I remember a poll that was released, or like a data research campaign out of London, England or something, considered her the most marketable athlete on earth at one point. Yes, this is true. I will
remember
go back
Hayes,
and find
remember
it.
all the commercials when she was like at her peak?
Everywhere.
All the time.
Everywhere. And it lasted, a year and a half, and then it just completely fell off a cliff. Like, if someone came to you and said, describe the career of Jeannie Bouchard, how would you do that?
Electric, but too short. 2014. That's when I first started going, the reason one of the reasons TSN sent me to the Grand Slams in 2014 is because of what Jeannie was doing. She made the semis in Australia. She followed that up with a semifinal in Paris, and then the finals at Wimbledon, fourth round of the U.S. Open. Nobody won more matches in the Grand Slams that year on the women's tour than Jeannie Bouchard. She didn't win a major, but she won more matches. She was in the mix every Grand Slam. Probably the greatest. I know she didn't win one, so maybe you'd say Bianca Andreescu just because she won the U.S. Open that year in 2019. But probably the best Grand Slam season ever by a Canadian singles player, just with how she was in the mix at every Grand Slam, so consistent. She won a title. Everything felt so amazing. Like it was like Canadian tennis was having a moment. Everyone was into it. Jeannie had the personality for it too. Raonic had more staying power, of course, and he had more long runs. But Jeannie's personality was so engaging that I felt like everyone had an opinion on her. Everyone was interested in it. And she really captured the imagination, but it was too short. And 2015 was a bit of a disaster. She felt the pressure. She spoke very openly about that. And then she finally seemed to get her game back at the U.S. Open before the real sliding doors moment of her career, which was the slip and fall in the locker room late at night, which led to a concussion, forced her to withdraw when she was in the fourth round of the singles. And who knows, maybe where things go if she doesn't get that injury and she's able to build on that momentum. So it was an electric career, but it was way too short. And it's too bad because what a personality. And her game when she was on, the aggressive style, she was fun to cover, that's for sure.
Yeah, the magazine was Sports Pro. London magazine that bills itself the leader in global sports industry news, views, insights, and features. Now, I don't know enough about it. Maybe it's some guy's basement in like Liverpool or something, and the guy has absolutely no reason to call himself or state himself in those regards, but released its annual list of the top 50 most marketable athletes in the world in 2015. And at the top of it was Jeannie Bouchard. 21-year-old Canadian Jeannie Bouchard, followed by Neymar, Jordan Spieth, Missy Franklin, Lewis Hamilton, Rafa Nadal, Andy Murray, Serena Williams. Like, she was ahead of all of them on this list. And that was because the 3 semifinals, the Wimbledon final, and then, like you said, slip and a fall, and she never was competitive again. Kind of crazy. Go ahead, Jonas.
She had one big moment after that, really big moment where you remember Sharapova had the doping ban,
yep.
And she came out and she said she felt that Sharapova should be banned for life, and nobody was really saying that, no one on tour at least, and they ended up playing each other in Madrid. I believe it was 2017, and it was like this grudge match, and she beat her in 3 sets, and it was a big moment. Like, she really stared her down at the net, at the handshake. But you're right. After that, it was not at the Grand Slams. There was never really any more big moments. You kept waiting for her to have that resurgence, and it never really happened.
What's going on with Canadian tennis, Mark? Like, was that the peak? Are we done? Is it just going to be kind of okay?
It's the end of an era for sure. Jeannie Bouchard, Milos Raonic, Vasek Pospisil, and Pospisil's coming to the end too. I imagine we're going to hear some news on that soon. And Raonic, I asked Raonic, I said, are you ever going to play like a tournament that's known as your final tournament? He's like, no, I'll just be gone. And that seems to have been what's happened with him. That's kind of more his style. He was more subtle, kind of laid back in that way. So that they're done. And they were the ones that ushered in this golden age and then passed the torch to Denis Shapovalov, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Bianca Andreescu, of course, has come on, Leilani Fernandez, this next generation. But this generation, you're wondering right now, is what's going on with it because, Auger-Aliassime, Shapovalov, Fernandez, they're all in the kind of 20s to 30s range. They've struggled to have we've now gone more than 3 years without a Canadian in a quarterfinal at a Grand Slam. And they've had their runs at lower-level events. In fact, Shapovalov's going to play in a semifinal tonight in Mexico, but they haven't been able to do it on the biggest stage. And certainly in men's tennis, it feels like, there's this Sinner Alcaraz era that's becoming unfolding right now that no one else can touch. So maybe have they even missed their window to do damage? We'll see. They're all young enough still to do it, but it does feel like it's been a tough patch. I am very excited about an 18-year-old Vicky Mboko from Burlington, Ontario, who just made her Grand Slam debut in Paris, got into Wimbledon as a lucky loser, and knocked out a seeded player. People are very, very excited about her potential at 18 and where she's going to go. She'll get a wild card. She'll play in Montreal. And then on the men's side, Gabriel Diallo, who qualified for the U.S. Open last year, made the third round. He took Taylor Fritz to 5 sets at Wimbledon. Fritz goes on to the semifinals. He's a bit of a late bloomer, went to Kentucky, went the college route, and he's up to now in the 30s range. Could end up being seeded for the U.S. Open. So I'm very excited about the prospects of Mboko and Diallo as maybe that next generation that hopefully can push Chapo and Felix and Layla, and we can get a whole group of guys, kind of that pack hunter mentality, so that Canada can get back to some deep runs in Grand Slams, which we haven't seen in a while.
Okay, love it. Love the updates. Really appreciate it, Mark. Little hockey, little tennis. Perfect mix, I think, in July.
It's a weird time for me because I'm getting ready to go to the World Junior Summer event next week, but it's also coinciding with the National Bank Open, so I'm kind of juggling some interviews on both ends, and I'm like, I am the only person in the world who has this problem.
Yes.
Like trying to fit in tennis with World Junior Summer stuff. So it's a weird time of year, but it's fun.
Yep. Crush it like you always do. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, guys.
Mark Masters. Yeah, the World Junior Camp. I guess Gavin McKenna will be there, right? Running the show. Future Penn State Nittany Lion. Just a little bit disappointing. I'm sure out there that's big news, right, Strud? Not playing in the WHL.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, everything's changed so much with that now that players can go from CHL to NCAA. That's massive, and I think that. I mean, I definitely don't know anyone who knows everything how it's going to play out, because now here we call it, the Alberta Junior Hockey League or BCHL, do they become feeder leagues to the Western League, and now Western League is feeding their top players onto the NCAA? Like, no disrespect to Medicine Hat, but would you rather play there in Alberta or go to a college down the States and get paid way
paid
more?
A lot. $1 million Canadian almost.
It's huge, man. It's really going to change the landscape. And even American players coming up to WHL or to CHL, does that change the number of spots that are available for Canadian players? So I don't think that the general public is really understanding what this can all mean.
Yeah, it could be a drastic change in the next decade. It really is. And I'm not sure any of the parties involved know exactly where it's going to go.
Yeah.
All right, Bob Weeks on day 2 of the Open Championship. Scottie Scheffler solo lead at 10 under. Corey Connors made the cut. He's playing into the weekend, the only Canadian to do so. We're on now with Bob in about 15. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Bob Weeks and Dear Hazy B coming up. Our best bet still to come as well. I think if you were, playing the favorites going into the Open Championship, you're probably pretty happy with your Scottie Scheffler pick. Solo lead, shot the lights out today. Kind of some crazy stuff going on over there, though. Shane Lowry, snapping all over the place. So I want to get into that with Bob because Lowry's got this reputation of being this, happy-go-lucky guy, and all I ever see him do is lose his mind on the course. It just doesn't seem like an accurate assessment of what he's actually all about. And he obviously won there at Royal Portrush back in 19. But he's into the weekend. McIlroy's into the weekend. Corey Connors did make the cut, I believe, right on the number, but he is into the weekend. So a little bit of Canadian content for the Open Championship going into the weekend. So Bob will join us on that, what to expect this weekend. Can anyone catch Scottie Scheffler? We'll get to Dear Hazy B. Jays Giants tonight. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
It's Mail It In Friday.
Yeah, hi, it's Bill Lumberg again. Yeah, it isn't a half day or anything like that.
This is Overdrive.
It's not that I'm lazy. It's that I just don't care.
With Haze, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Final hour for the week. Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Jonas Siegel of The Athletic, and Jason Strudwick with us. Best bets later this hour. Dear Hazy B coming up in about a half an hour. A couple of submissions. And I got a couple of things on my mind, too, that I want to cycle through, both Jonas and you, Struddy. So I think you guys have a pretty good read on the way society is supposed to be working here.
On life.
Yeah, in life. I consider you a philosopher, Jonas. I think you're a philosopher guy, right? You're big on different philosophies. You should write a book someday just on your whole viewpoint of the world. I'd read that.
Yeah. I don't think that would sell very well.
You don't think there'd be a big audience for that?
No.
That's unfortunate. So, yeah, we'll get to Dear Hazy B in about a half an hour. But day 2 of the Open Championship, and you look at the leaderboard, there's Scottie Scheffler. A very familiar name sitting at the top. Scottie Scheffler. Let's bring in our TSN golf reporter. Here's Bob Weeks. Bob, I'm sure you're not surprised that Scottie's sitting there with a one-shot lead after 36 holes.
I got to tell you, I didn't pick him at the start of the week only because his putting record is horrendous at this tournament. He's finished 72nd and 48th the last couple of years in putting on the greens, and these are very different greens, obviously, but all those doubts were erased today. I mean, he played exceptionally well, and I was telling someone today in the newsroom, if you didn't have a scorecard in front of you, or if they weren't keeping score on TV and you looked and watched him play, I don't know what you would have thought he shot, but I don't know if it would have been 64. It just seemed like he was escaping from, anytime he hit a bad shot, he never compounded it. He hit a good shot. He drained some long putts. He drained some short putts. But it was sort of one of those methodical rounds that Scottie Scheffler has become known for. And now he's not only got a one-shot lead, but he's got everybody behind him looking and saying, how are we going to catch this guy?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. The way he came home, too, it looks so consistent, so under control. And you mentioned, the putting over there in particular, and the elements are unpredictable. Who knows what it's going to look like. Maybe the guys that go out in the morning tomorrow get pristine weather and Scottie gets hit with crazy weather. But if I were to offer you up Sheffler versus the field with 36 holes to go, who would you take?
I'd take Scheffler. I mean, don't forget he played through 4 holes of the hardest rain we've seen so far in the 2 days.
Yep.
And he didn't seem to flinch. And I really don't know if you're again. I kind of look back at the guys behind. There's some good talent there. Matt Fitzpatrick's won a major. Brian Harmon has won a major. Tyrrell Hatton, Robert McIntyre. These guys aren't kind of raw rookies that are chasing him. And Rory's not too far back. But I just don't see them playing with any kind of consistency like Scottie has played with. And as you said, it's kind of sort of methodical. It's kind of, he just doesn't make 2 mistakes. If he makes one, he corrects it, and he doesn't make one very often. So it's enticing to watch, but it must be frustrating if you're another golfer to see him do it week after week.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Watching the coverage today, I want to say he was hitting into 15. And, he hit the front of the green and it kind of spun off into the front. It was not a horrible shot. Obviously, it was a bit of a miss, but not a horrible shot. And he was in the fescue. It was a difficult kind of position for him to control the ball. And I think it was Brad Faxon and Hicks and the whole crew was like, oh, that's a huge mistake. And I'm like, that's a Scheffler huge mistake. The rest of the field would have been okay with that shot. But we've become so accustomed to this guy never missing anything. And sure enough, he went up, chipped it to 2 feet, tapped in for par, and moved on with his day. But that's kind of even how, the broadcasters are reacting to him, Bob, that the rest of the field would be okay with his miss. And because it's him, it almost seems extreme.
It's amazing. I mean, we talked on Thursday about the fact that he only hit three fairways. But when he missed the rough, he either just missed. He wasn't in anything too terrible, first cut or something like that, or he got these great slides. Like he rarely ever had to kind of hack one out. He did one today, but on 17 again today, he drove it really far right. Like he was well off course, but somehow he doesn't. He only had about 100 yards, but still he hits it into like 14 feet and drains it for birdie. And I'm thinking if it's most other people there, they get over there, they're just sort of lobbing it up to the center of the green somewhere and hoping they've got 30 feet or something. But he's so consistent and he's so laid back. And, but if he wins the claret jug, according to him, he'll have, 2 or 3 minutes to celebrate, and then he'll focus on the FedEx Cup playoffs or something. I'm not sure what. That's the kind of laid back attitude that this guy has. And it's just so impressive. It's really perhaps one of the most impressive things I've seen, since Tiger's days when he was sort of dominating, and now I think he's kind of intimidating the rest of the field, to be honest.
Well, Bob, what did you make of his comments earlier in the week, just on winning? Were you surprised?
Not really. I've had some good conversations with Scottie over the years, and I think I've seen him, and not only him, but a lot of other golfers. They kind of evolve. They evolve over time. They come up from college and all they want to do is play golf, and then they get married and they say, "Oh, I've got someone else in my life," and then they have kids, and they realize, I think, during those transitions in their life that there is a lot more to golf, and golf is a little different than, say, Super Bowl or Stanley Cup. Like the Florida Panthers celebrated for 2 weeks after the Stanley Cup. But after the Masters, Rory's got a tournament starting Monday, so it's a little bit different. Not saying that it's anything unusual. I just think there's more people like Scottie out there in the sports world than let on, and he said that there's been lots of people come up and say, lots of golfers come up and say, I agree with you 100%. Mac Hughes was very vocal about that too. You can't let golf eat up your entire life. It's just not good. Now, maybe some guys celebrate for 10 minutes and he only celebrates for 2 or whatever, he's saying. But I really wasn't surprised, because that's kind of the guy Scottie is. He's got a young child at home. He's a man of faith. He's a very religious person, and he's got a lot of things that go on outside and after he steps off the golf course that I think seem to him to be either just as important or more important.
With Bob Weeks, 2 days into the Open Championship, Scottie Scheffler alone in the lead at 10 under. If we fast forward to Sunday night and he ends up closing this, he will be 3/4 through the career slam. He picked up a PGA earlier this year. He's won 2 Masters. This will be an Open. That'll leave the U.S. Open that he'd be chasing, which happens to be the worst major he plays in every year. Effectively, right. He's never really been in the hunt at any point. But if he closes this loop, he ends up winning the Open. Do you think it would be a lock at that point? At some point, the career slam's going to happen for Scheffler?
It would sure seem like it the way he plays right now. And, his record in this tournament, I know he's got a couple of top 10s, but they've kind of been backdoor top 10s in the 4 times he's played this one. So he didn't really have a great record here either. He's finished. I'm trying to think what year it was, maybe 21 or 22. I think he was tied for second at the U.S. Open. A bit of a backdoor again, but he's played well in all the majors. That's the thing about him. He plays well in every tournament. He's got a game that really, really kind of flows across different styles of golf, different setups. The U.S. Open is long, rough, and brutally penal, and the PGA is that third one. I mean, maybe he has to get arrested again to stop him from winning the U.S. Open. If he wins this one, that might be the only way to do it. I just don't see a lot of weaknesses in his game. I don't see a lot of bad days now that he's got his putter working. That's the only thing. If his putter's a little cold, which it can be hot or cold, that's the only part of his game that really has any kind of question marks beside it.
Bob, there's 3 other guys that are within a couple shots of him. Of those 3, which one do you think can push him the hardest?
I like Brian Harmon, and he is a magician around the green. He's got a great short game. This tournament, you don't have to be a bomber. He's not a bomber. I think he's averaging 285 off the tee. So I think he's a guy who could really, he's the guy who catches my eye, who can step it up. Matt Fitzpatrick has been playing well the last I think, 3 or 4 tournaments. He's got a couple of top 10s. He tied for 4th last week. He had the weirdest thing I've heard. He was having trouble hitting his irons, and he went to a new coach, Mark Blackburn, who's a very well-known tour coach. And he said, I think your arms are too long. And they measured his arms, and he's got sort of longer than normal arms. So they had to adjust his clubs, and now he's hitting his irons perfectly. He said he couldn't find the face of his irons before, but they measured his arms. I've never heard anyone with arms that were too long. So that's an interesting one to me, for sure.
Maybe that's my issue. I'd be on tour. I just need to get my arms, figured out. I like watching Harman. I was chatting with a buddy of mine today, and he said he loves watching him because he just finds it funny, with the, the waggles, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's not like it's 6 waggles and go. Sometimes it's 3 waggles, then the next time it's 15. I find it painful. Like, as a guy that does waggle a little bit, but I'm not a pro, so no one's subjected to my garbage. I can't do it again, Bob. Like, a 2-time Open winner with those waggles, I can't do it again with Harman.
The only reason I want him to win is because he told me, I was at the Travelers Championship a few weeks ago, and I asked him about winning the claret jug, and I said, did you have a couple of sips out of it? And he says, the people from the RNA told me I brought it back in the worst condition it's ever brought it back in because we drank so much out of that thing. So it's that would be a good reason. Just the celebration alone, that would be a little different than Scottie's.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe I got to give him another chance. I'll give Brian Harman another chance. With Bob Weeks, I saw you tweet out that Corey Connors he made the cut right on the number, 1 over par. But it's been a pretty good run. Like, he's not going to win this week. He probably won't even be in contention. But he had the injury issue, obviously, at the U.S. Open and appears to be back healthy. But a bit disappointing. Only one Canadian, and it's Corey, and he's right on the number.
Yeah, it was disappointing. And I was searching around to try and find, what's the record for when was the last time we didn't have a Canadian make a cut in a major? You have to go back to the U.S. Open in 2018. So these guys have been on a good run. And this year, we've had some guys who played pretty well at T5 for Penrith at the PGA, and I think Corey was in the top 10 at the Masters. So it's been a pretty good run with these guys, but a little disappointing. Those first rounds really took the stuffing out of them, and they'll regroup. But the bigger one to watch right now is in the other tournament, Adam Hadwin, who's in danger of losing his playing privileges if he can't get into the top 125. I think he's 130 right now. So he's got to have a good weekend on the B tournament on the B circuit.
Mm-hmm. Bob, do you see a Rory surge coming this weekend?
I think he'll play well tomorrow. I'm not sure if he's got enough room to catch, or there's too much room maybe to catch Scottie. The thing about Rory is he's got to put the ball in the fairway a little bit more often and get some shots closer. Like his distance from the pin or from the green. When he's on the green, the distance from the pin is really not. He doesn't have a lot of good looks for birdies. He's sort of putting from 30 and 20 feet all the time. So put the ball in the fairway, gives you a little chance to get it a little bit closer. I don't think he's far off from a good round. He's talked after the round sort of being semi-satisfied with how he was playing, but he's got to get that ball in the hole a little bit more often, and the way to do that is just, hit the ball in the fairway, get it closer to the pin, and roll it in. It sounds easy, but I think you'll see him up near the top of the leaderboard. I still don't think he's going to catch Scottie, though.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I mean, McIlroy is somewhat in the hunt, I guess. What is he, 3 under, I believe? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 under, but 7 shots back of Sheffler seems pretty difficult to make up. And his buddy Shane Lowry, who won there in 19, had kind of a crazy scene today. His ball was in the, I guess, fescue. He took a practice swing, and the ball seemingly moved. And I saw some video of him snapping all over that place. And he's got a reputation of this happy-go-lucky kind of, just out having a good time. I think that is completely inaccurate, the assessment of him. Like, he's a hothead on the course, Lowry.
Oh, yeah.
And yet that's his rep, like, just a good old guy having fun. Let's go out for a beer. I don't think that's who it is on the course, man. Like, in between the ropes, he's fiery, Shane Lowry.
Yeah, he is pretty fiery, and I'll tell you, they took him into. They told him what had happened while he was on the golf course and said, "Don't sign your scorecard till we get through." And they took him back in. I mean, I think if you look at the video very close, you can kind of see it oscillates a little bit. But he said he really couldn't see any kind of a movement He didn't think it moved at all. He said, but I don't want to be known as a cheater, so I took the 2-shot penalty. And it's probably a smart move because you don't want to end up like Patrick Reed,
right,
where everyone's second guessing you. But he does have a little bit of a fiery temper when he's on the golf course. He's pretty good off the golf course, and some of that has to do with the Guinness. But but he's a good guy. But if you want to talk hotheads, I don't know if you saw John Rahm, but he was slamming a wedge and kicking his wedge down the fairway and giving it a big spanking for some bad shots. That wasn't too good. But there's some guys who leave it on the golf course, thank goodness.
Yeah, and Rahm even par, so he's not going to do anything this weekend. DeChambeau made the cut. He's at 1 over, but Lowry's at even par even with that penalty. But, it's an interesting time in golf. Like you mentioned, Hadwin and, the Barracuda, I think, is where they're playing right now, the B tournament. Joel Damon's in that, and Damon famously split up with his caddy this week, who, that was a pretty prominent story in that Full Swing Netflix doc. And Colin Morikawa's gone through multiple caddies, and Max Homa's gone through like 10 of them. Like, is this just normal behavior, or is it like uber competitive between player and caddy? Because there seems to be a lot of turnover on tour right now.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's and sometimes you got to remember too. Sometimes it's the caddy firing the player,
right?
And I think that's a certain situation with Colin Morikawa, who's not the friendliest guy. I don't think all the time. At least he's getting a reputation as that. Mm-hmm. So he might find it tough to find a good fit. And I'm not sure if there's just an extraordinary number of them or if it's just more high-profile guys. The Joel Damon one was one that I never thought, because those guys have been together since university, where they played together. But Joel Damon's looking for a fresh start. He's looking for something. He needs a fresh face on the bag or some encouragement. Sometimes you just get stale, and these guys just do it for the sake of a change. So it's tough to figure out right now. It's a little bit like, grab a seat when the music stops and hope you have a golf bag somewhere along the line for the caddies.
Big time. Big time.
Bob, I'm wondering, how does that process work? Like, I'm guessing looking for a caddy, you don't just sew it up on Kijiji and say, hey, I'm looking for a caddy. So is it word of mouth? Like, how does that kind of come together when you're looking for someone? Or I might have a guy, or I might know someone. How does that fit together?
Yeah, basically, if you're a tour caddy and you've got some history and some reputation, you let everybody know, and you let agents know, and then the agents will spread the word, and it circulates pretty quick. This is a traveling road show that goes from week to week, so if you're a pretty good name, then you're gonna probably find a bag somewhere along the line, and it's tough though, because it's all personalities. It's not so much all these guys. Basically, all the tour caddies right now are basically golf professionals. They're guys who can play the game very well, so they can work with you and coach with you. And sometimes there's a fit that personality-wise that it meshes. And I think of Brennan Little, who caddies for so many years for Mike Weir, and now working with Gary Woodland. He had a stretch in between there where he kind of floated and went to 2 or 3 different guys, and all of a sudden he lands with Woodland, and they're basically inseparable. But Brendan Little played in the United States Senior PGA Championship. He qualified for it, so he's obviously a good golfer as well. And that tends to be the situation. But mostly it's word of mouth, and if you're unemployed, you let everybody know that you're unemployed if they don't already know.
Well, we'll see what comes with this weekend against Sheffler. Not just in the hunt. He's the pace car. He's got a one-shot lead. There's some big names that are up there, but it's going to be tough to track him down. If he plays like he did today, I believe he was the low score, 7 under par. He does that again tomorrow. See you later. Turn the lights out. All right, Bob. Enjoy Saturday and Sunday the golf. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend.
You got it. Bob Weeks, our TSN golf reporter.
Hey, I have a question.
Holes in. Yeah, go ahead.
Does Sheffler have any chance of catching, maybe not Nicklaus, but and maybe not Tiger, but does he have a chance of climbing right up there?
I don't
or no?
think so. The fact that Tiger couldn't catch Nicklaus, there's no way anyone's getting to 18 majors. No chance.
But could he get to 10 or he's 10, at 3 now?
I think because we're in the eye of the storm, it seems possible. Yet I remember we were having those conversations about McIlroy a decade ago. This guy's going to run off 8, 9, 10, and then it took 11 years for him to win another one. Jordan Spieth, the same thing. Spieth came in, won a Masters, won an Open championship, won a U.S. Open. He's got 3/4 of the Grand Slam, and he hasn't won anything in years. So I don't think it's possible. I mean, Koepka's up to 5 in his career, I believe.
Rory has 5, I saw.
Rory's got 5. And
to win 5 more seems impossible.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. So if you're Sheffler, you've got 3 in the bank now, 2 Masters and a PGA. I feel like I think what's more likely for him is to rack up 4 or 5 Masters. I think that's possible. I think Tiger's got 5, 4 or 5 green jackets, and Nicklaus, I think, has 5 or 6 green jackets. Is that possible that he runs off 2 or 3 more and gets into that company? I think it is, because it's a smaller field. You go back to the same course every year. He knows it. He loves it. He dominates it. He's in his prime. But to run off 7, 8, 9 more majors with U.S. Opens and PGAs and all that, I just don't think it's possible. Coverage of the 153rd Open from Royal Portrush on OverDrive brought to you by Subaru. Head to your local Subaru dealer for lease rates from 1.99% for 24 months on select models. See dealer for details. All right, Dear Hazy B coming up. Best bets coming up. Jays Giants tonight. Verlander on the mound for the Giants, and Chris Bassett on for the Jays. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
OverDrive with Hays, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, best bets a little bit later in the hour. Mail It In Friday brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Enjoy a $15 lunch at BP where you get an entree, a side, and a drink, and you'll get it all in 20 minutes or less. A fast lunch doesn't have to be fast food. See you for a $15 fast lunch at your local Boston Pizza. So what are we expecting out of the Jays? Jonas, you got a pretty good read on the vibe downtown, and you're an objective viewer of things. Are you objective when it comes to the Jays, or do you allow yourself to be a fan?
No, I'm objective.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm curious to see. I was looking at the projected standings today. Do you like those projected standings?
Sure, why not? Yeah.
And they were projected to basically go just a little bit above 500 in the second half and finish behind the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of seems right to me. I don't trust. Trust is the wrong word. I don't love their rotation. Like you mentioned, Barrios, Gausman, Bassett. That's probably the worst of the AL playoff teams, or near the bottom.
Yep. There's no Crochet. There's no Scooble.
Right.
Yep.
So that concerns me. And I honestly, I don't know what the second half is going to be like for Vladdy. I would think it will be better, but
I fully expect that it'll be a lot better. That's what I'm bracing for. I think it needs to be. I expect it will be. I think at a minimum you'll just get what it's been consistently, which is good but not great. I think that's the bar minimum. But, they have ideally Barrios, Bassett, Gausman, on a great staff. Those are your 3, 4, 5 guys.
100%.
Like a great staff. They're your 3, 4, 5 guys, not your 1, 2, 3 guys. Scherzer's the ultimate wild card. If Scherzer can be healthy and give you stuff, then he has the ability to pitch like an ace. I wouldn't rely on it, but it is possible. I think another thing that came out today is that Santander is still not even swinging. I'm worried that we're just going to hear surgeries coming. That's next, right? I guess he's flying back up into town, going to go through the whole review process, MRI and everything. How far off are we from them just shutting him down for the year?
Well, they kind of need him. They could use a big bat with just some power in the middle of the lineup.
Big power bat that's capable of hitting 40-plus home runs. Basically exactly what you'd want right now, but it doesn't seem reasonable to expect.
Well, it's hard because he hasn't played for a while, and then you're trying to come back. Can he get up to speed in short order? And I can say that, I think as a player, I always felt it was important to come back and really hit the ground running after the All-Star game. I know it was only a short break. You're not looking at that much. Now the Olympics was even longer, but I just felt it's really important as an individual and as a team to get going right away. You don't want to kind of ease your way back in, because there are teams that do that or are able to do that because they're so jacked with talent. But so I think that the first handful of games here, guys, are really important for the Blue Jays to kind of get going again.
Yeah, I agree. You want to win a series like this one. Take 2 out of 3. Start off well. Because if you win every series, which you're not going to, but if you put yourself in that position, you're going to win the division. Clearly, and I think that's a reasonable projection. They finish 2 or 3 games above 500 the rest of the way, starting from now until the end of the year, and that's going to put you in the playoffs. If that's going to get you 88 wins, 87 wins, 89 wins, and you're going to be in if you do that. But I think the trade deadline will clearly have a role in the ultimate projection, right? Who else can you add? Not only them, the Yankees, the Red Sox, and we'll see what comes of it starting tonight. All right, best bets a little bit later in the hour. You guys ready for Dear Hazy B?
Let's rock.
People send in a tweet. They write us for our professional advice on life things. Dear Hazy B, every morning my boiler has a gas leak. My wife thinks it's the baby.
Dear Hazy B.
If you want to come to Hazy B, I need honesty from you.
Hazy, you got dumped a lot. Tell me. Tell him.
Grown adults with birthdays, it's asinine.
Yeah, grown adults with birthdays. Noodle's not a big birthday guy, although he did wish you a happy birthday yesterday. I saw that, Strutty. So there you go. I'm sure you heard from
Very
Noodles.
kind.
Yeah, very kind. Dear Hazy B, brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Enjoy a $15 lunch at your BP, where you get an entree, a side, and a drink, and you'll get it all in 20 minutes or less. A fast lunch doesn't have to be fast food. See you for a $15 fast lunch at your local Boston Pizza. The first one from Paul. It feels like a Strutty answer. I don't know. Jonas, you can definitely contribute. I'm curious your take on this. But Strutty, I'll bet you, has been in a very similar spot at some point in his life. Paul writing and saying, Dear Hazy B, I have new neighbors, and they're letting the grass get out of control immediately.
Oh,
half a foot long, dandelions everywhere, thistle, haven't mowed the lawn. How do I address this without damaging the relationship? FYI, my grass is basically textbook. What do we do here, Strutty? How does Paul approach this scenario?
Paul, I feel for you, man. My grass is at Augusta level, just so you know. Like, I take a lot of pride in it. So, and actually, this is something I've shared. I don't think I've shared it before publicly, just like I stealing the balls out of people's bags. But I actually, the boulevards in my neighborhood, if they aren't cut by someone, I'll just take my lawnmower down. I just go cut it. I'll whippersnip. I've gone 2 blocks down the road because I don't want to drive through and have to look at high grass and weeds. And I can't stand when people don't whippersnip around their
man
trees.
of the people.
So I just go and do it.
Wow.
Without asking. I'll just go and do it. I'll take an hour of my day and go cut it. So the neighbor situation, my suggestion is talk to him. Say, hey, man, listen, how would you feel if I cut it for you? I'll cut it for you. Provide me with a nice bottle of tequila, some beer, and do it. Like, just make it happen. Like, my neighbor and I share a common front lawn, and I talk to him and I cut it because it looks like a golf course. It's so beautiful. Then at the end of the summer, he just gives me a bottle of good tequila, and I'm happy. I love doing it. You got the shirt off. You're getting this free suntan. Obviously, his wife loves seeing me out there too. So it's a win-win for everybody. So talk to him and then cut it.
Yeah. I like that his wife's like, get him the good tequila. He had a great summer out there. Yeah, I don't know about offering up the services on a breaking the ice scenario, right? Like, because it seems like this Paul doesn't even know who his neighbors are, right? Like, doesn't know them. So you're going over there with the introduction, hey, how are you? Right into lawn gate. I don't think you can do it the first chat, right? I think you got to kind of ease into it a little bit. So go do the meet and greet. How's everything going? You settled in. Maybe there's some sort of an explanation. Feel it out a little bit. But ultimately, I am of the belief that you just there's nothing you can do. It's their property. Like, ultimately, it's their property, and it's unfortunate. But what are you going to do?
I have an idea.
Demand that they cut their lawn? What are you going to do?
I have a 2-part idea. What if in the middle of the night, you go and post like a little note on their door that says, cut your grass or else?
That's so passive-aggressive and unnecessary.
How
what is that
aggressive
going to
is that?
accomplish?
Yeah,
It's like when you walk by the car that's dirty and someone writes, wash me. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Or you mail them a note that says, like, and just don't address it to anyone.
Mail them a note.
They're going to pick up on who that's from at some point. Because
please cut your grass.
Is going to take time out of their day for someone that's not your neighbor, not on your street, to send that type of message.
Yeah, and they'll come knock on your door and
around the corner.
You just say, I don't know what you're talking
Little
about.
Post-it.
Yeah.
You got to cut your lawn. I don't know. It is like, that's the crazy thing about, neighborhoods is that you just, in my neighborhood, there's like my neighbor across the street has like literally Augusta level lawn, and I am nowhere close to that. We keep ours in check. We do the whole weed thing. We invest in it. It's not great, but it's not awful. But there's some where you turn a corner, you're like, this thing has not been touched in years. Like, it's a complete disaster, this person's lawn. But that's the way it goes, man. That's the way it goes. You've been assigned that neighborhood. You chose that neighborhood. If you don't like it, move. Sorry, Paul. If you don't like it, you might have to get out of town.
You could call the bylaw enforcement, right? And they'll come by and they'll tell the people, right?
You can't do that on a lawn, can you? What's the ruling?
Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah, I think you have to keep it within a certain level. Yeah, at least out here in Edmonton, we maybe have higher standards. But I have a rental property, and I got a call on it because someone told me they were cutting the lawn. I'd hired someone. They didn't. And I hadn't gone by in a while. And I get a letter like, what's going on here? It's like, go out there. And it's like I had to get a lot going on to get that trimmed down again, and not to get that. I think it's like it's like $100 fine. You got to be careful.
Wow,
big bucks.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah,
that the city. Yeah, I guess why not? We don't have enough taxes. Tax the lawn. Let's add to that. Let's make sure people continue to pay whatever they've got. All right, what else do we have here? Steve sending in a tweet, I believe it was, Stephen Oakville. Dear AZB, I just picked up golf, and my friends have been letting me tag along. They've played for much longer than I have, and quite frankly, they're much better players. I'm still learning the game, but I feel bad because I can feel that I'm starting to slow them down. They've been great supporters, but I'm picking up on frustration now. Been loving golf. I don't want to infringe on their rounds. Should I start solo golfing, find a new group with similar skill level, or just keep going with the boys? Really appreciate the help. What's the play here?
I would say,
Strud?
Yeah, I'll take it. I would say you go to your buddies and you say, am I like, do you not want me to come anymore? Or do you want me to like sit some of these out? Do you need me to work on my game? Because you don't want to be the person that's dragging everybody down, right? It's kind of...
Right, it's awkward.
It's awkward.
Very awkward.
I think you got to go to them because they're going to know, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think the play is to not join every round. I know that's harsh, but I think it's just the truth. Like it's a scenario where if you're really just beginning, golf can be it can take a long time. You know, if you're 3 off the tee all the time, chunking chips, missing it. And if these guys are playing at a pace where they have something going and they're all kind of within the same range, the reality of golf is no one really cares what you are individually doing, right? Like everyone just cares about their own stuff. Like, so it's not nearly as daunting as this guy is making it out to be. I know you're self-conscious. You're worried all these other guys hate that I'm struggling. If the other guys are playing well, they don't care if you shoot 1,000,000 because they're playing well. But if it is causing significant pacing issues or they're trying to play games or whatever and you obviously can't partake because you're nowhere close, I think you just, scale it back to 50%. Every other round you play with the boys. The other times, go do your thing. Find another group. There's nothing wrong with that. Be social. It's all good.
But, Hayes, you know that as soon as you cut him out for one round, he's gone. Like, you're not – it's very few that have a group of 4 where it's like, well, we'll have a 3 and then someone in every other week. Like, it's not happening. If you cut Strudwick out, he's out. So this is what I suggest is you got to pick up the pace a little bit. Get yourself going. Maybe just hit from the best player's tee shot. Every round, just go and I'm going to hit from whoever hits it the first. I'm going to play from there, and I'll play in from there because, I play with my wife, and I've tried to get my kids into. They're finally starting to be fun where I'm not dragging them around and they're just slow. Now they're playing fine, but my wife, I love her, but man, she's a slow golfer, and it's hard. You're like, oh, please, just pick the ball up, and I'll throw it, I'll kick it out there, just to keep the pace because, like you said, I don't care how well you play. I just want to keep my own rhythm. Right? I don't want to be dragged down by your slow play. So
that's right.
A, once you're out of the group, you're out of the group. B, hit from the longest driver's tee shot, and now it'll shorten your game and less stress until you feel good about your drive.
That's a great point. Like, no one cares. Like, if you're on the same skill set, nobody cares what you shoot that day because you're still going to be keeping pace and hit it. What does throw people off is when they're sitting there waiting all the time. And it's like, man, I'm never going to be up because this guy's on. He's laying 7 and he's still 100 yards behind me. It's killing me here. Come on. And that is the truth with kids. Like, I will do that with my oldest where she wants to play, which I encourage. But I'm also like, why don't you just
100%
come up where I am? And we'll start there. No, I want to. It's like, okay, go ahead. And then you got to bite your lip and you're like, yeah, no, go. Yeah, you can tee it up from there. Yep, tee it up. Go ahead, tee it up again. And you're like, oh, my God, I just want to get up here and play so badly. So that is a good point. Keep the pace up more than anything. No one cares the shots you're taking or how it looks or what the scorecard is. Just keep up. That's valid.
And maybe buy the beers.
Possibly mix in some beers.
Helps. But that's a bribe,
hurts.
though.
Right,
it's a
that's
bribe.
fine.
You're still playing slow. If you're still playing, if you're hitting 5 to my 1, there's not enough beer on the course to make me keep that up.
It's not going to compensate for the amount of time that's throwing you off your rhythm and off your game.
Yeah.
All right. There's a couple of examples. Dear Hazy B, I love it. There's so many different people still writing in. We love doing this bit. We'll continue it, as we go throughout the summer. But, we were talking. We started the show talking about Lloyd Howell Jr., who resigned last night as the executive director of the NFLPA and all the different things he's been up to, including 2 visits to a strip club, a $738 car ride from the airport to the Peeler joint in Florida, which that doesn't add up. Like, that screams, I need cash overcharge me, pay me, and then you give me cash out of your pocket. Like, that's kind of what that would scream to me. There's no car service on earth that should cost over $700 for one stop.
Unless he was waiting outside the whole time, right?
That is possible, and I do think that could have been what was happening, because he got dropped off at 10:23 and then got back to his hotel at 6 a.m. You're right. Maybe the meter was just running for like 8 hours. And it's like, this is what it is, Lloyd. And he's like, yeah, put it on the card. Put it on the card. Tom Brady will be paying for that one. That's coming out of Brady's contract or whoever it is back in the day for the NFL and the NFLPA. But, man, what a story that was. That's a Dear Hazy B. Dear Hazy B, I have been very liberal with the usage of the credit card from the Players Union.
They are investigating.
They are investigating. How do I get out of this? Well, you resign, and then I guess try to explain any possible reasoning.
Dear Hazy B, what do I say in my next job interview?
How do I get a new job? And I guess, again, you could repay this stuff, which I believe is we talked with the mayor up in North Bay, who I guess was being somewhat liberal with the expense card himself. I believe he's repaid all the expenses, and that's great. Go ahead, repay, move on, but probably shouldn't have been doing it to begin with, especially public servants. Like, the union and the players would care about this, but, like, if you're a mayor, no one's going to be like, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. Like, you're serving the people, Watch yourself out there, people. Please be a little bit more careful. All right, we'll come back with our best bets and Jays Giants tonight. And, of course, the Open Championship continuing throughout the weekend, where Scottie Scheffler has a one-shot lead on the field. He's at 10 under after 2 rounds. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm on the Jays money line and over the number tonight. The total's 8.5. I expect some offense tonight, and I am on the Blue Jays. That parlay paying plus 210. Best bets powered by FanDuel. Verlander's going to be interesting tonight. 2 no-hitters in this building. 2 no-hitters. One is a Tiger, one is an Astro. Has not pitched great this year, has not registered a win. He's 0-7 on the season, but coming off the break, and he loves kind of the aura of this mound and this building. It scares me a little bit. I got to be honest. If I'm a Blue Jay, I'm like, if this guy, reaches back and finds some nostalgic kind of magic in there, it could be a long night, but
that's a tall order.
I think they'll get after him. That's a tall order. Like
it's not like he's 28, right? Like I at some point you're not the same person you were in any sport. And I think that it'd be a miracle, and I guess neat to see as far as nostalgic for the league, but not if you're a Blue Jays player for sure. But I don't know, Jonas,
exactly.
That's a pretty big reach.
But Strutty, you got to figure he's going to get a win at some point.
A win, but not a no-hitter.
Not a no-hitter. I'm not calling a no-hitter tonight.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were calling no-hitter.
No. I'm not saying he's going to win it. I'm just saying, could he be electric tonight? Could, like, the strikeout total on FanDuel is like 3.5. I could see him hammering the over on that. I could see a quick inning out of him, 3 up, 3 down to start. And it's like, all right, he's found some juice. He loves that building. Everyone's got their favorite spots, and Verlander has clearly loved the Rogers Center. Possibly more so than any other park. I mean, 2 no-hitters in the same building is incredible. It'd be one thing if he was a Blue Jay, it'd be amazing. He's not. Like, he's a road starter. The guy's got 2 no-hitters at the Dome. It's pretty incredible. So possibly the last time we're going to see Verlander pitch at the Rogers Center tonight. We'll see. And no other NHL news today other than Gabe Velarde signing a 6-year extension in Winnipeg at $7.5 million. Do you think by Monday we have anything else announced, or you think anything else is coming? Because NHL or NBA, there just hasn't been a lot going on. Damian Lillard going back to Portland's kind of cool. Like that's pretty cool that Dame's going back to Portland.
That one
but they've been
stunned me,
so
Hayes.
bad.
I was stunned by that. Stunned.
You were stunned by that?
Yeah, because I thought he would, if he was going to sign, he would sign with a contender. But clearly, he just never wanted to leave Portland.
Yeah.
I just don't totally get it for Portland. He's not going to play this year, right? What's the idea of this? He's going to come back next year, but he's going to kind of interrupt the progress of your young franchise. I don't get it.
It is a weird play because they've been so bad, and the reason he had to go was because they were so bad, and ultimately it didn't work for him. He went to Milwaukee and it just never worked in Milwaukee. It never mixed well with Giannis, and then obviously got hurt, and Giannis was bent out of shape that Milwaukee even moved off him. But I'm with you. You look at what Bradley Beal just did. He joins the Clippers. I don't think that will work because I don't know if Beal's got anything left, and Harden and Kawhi I don't think are going to work. But at least the Clippers are a good team. They're going to be a playoff team. I don't believe that's going to be the case, with Portland over the next year or two. I could be wrong. We'll see or at least not championship caliber.
No, they're
Clippers
young and up and coming kind of.
Sure. Exactly. But Clippers believe they can win a title. The Trailblazers don't. Can they make the playoffs? Sure. Up and coming? Sure. But at the same time, that's a small market, and he's a beloved player, and he's returning, and I would guess people there are pretty excited, right? Portland's not New York or L.A. or Boston.
He's a likable guy, right? A likable player. I thought it was going to work out way better with the Bucks as well. He's so talented, shoots so well, but you go home and you know what? He was obviously comfortable there. So you go back home. You're there for a long time. You finish out your career there. I'm anticipating, and for Portland, you maybe use him where you need him, and he helps out with the younger players. I don't know. I think it's a feel-good story more than anything.
That's kind of what it is, which is allowed to happen sometimes, right? We don't have to be cynical about everything. Sometimes, hey, that's kind of cool. That's where he should be, right? They're going to retire his number someday, and that's probably where he should be in Portland. But, yeah, as for what else could happen in the NBA, what else could happen in the NHL, I don't know. Because now we're 2 weeks in, and there wasn't a lot of activity in terms of free agency. And we keep hearing, all hell's going to break loose. It's going to be the craziest summer ever. Every team's in the running, and every team's calling, and every team's looking to improve. When's that going to happen? Is it this weekend? I'm not holding my breath. But we'll see. All right, so we got 2 rounds in on the Open Championship. Scottie Scheffler in a very good position on that front. Jay's back in action tonight. Argos with a heartbreaker last night. They had it to move ahead of the Elks in the overall standings. They couldn't pull it off, Strud. They threw it away late in that game. But we'll see what happens when Chad Kelly returns. Even if that happens next week, who knows? Doesn't sound as if he's really that close. But it should be a fun weekend. Again, CFL on TSN continuing. Open Championship. Jay's back in action. All right, boys. Good seeing you guys. Thanks for doing this as always. We appreciate it. Jonas Siegel, Jason Strudwick, thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy your weekends. We're back Monday at 4 p.m. We'll chat then.